Gio, how's it going, buddy?
It's going good, man.
How's life?
Life's good, man. I can't complain. I mean, it's nice to be in a place where I feel like we're extremely busy.
Yeah.
Everything we're building is being consumed faster than we can make it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
dude, that's amazing, incredible.
It is. I honestly don't know if I've ever really taken a full beat or a moment to really absorb it. I kind of am in this mode where I'm moving forward pretty quickly and pretty focused. So I don't take a lot of time to, you know, sit back and be like, yeah, we're doing amazing. I mean, I know there's a lot of great things happening, but I feel like I've kind of got blinders on.
Yeah.
And I'm just really trying to stay focused on important.
Hey everyone. So I guess I should have introduced you. I mean, people probably know, you know, from our stories and stuff like that. Gio is actually my neighbor here in Boyle Heights. He's the reason why I have this amazing space next to him. And dude, I mean, I'm going up on a year.
Wow. That's
on
amazing.
A year.
Time flies.
Time flies.
I remember the first time you showed up. And you were talking about moving out of your apartment.
Yeah. And
I was like, light bulb went on. I was like, hey, there's a space next door. And you were like, oh, yeah, let me see it.
I know. I mean, dude, it's intimidating. You know what I mean? It's like.
It's huge.
I mean, it's like, and then it was during the pandemic too, or like the beginning of it.
Right.
Where it's like, and I remember thinking like, dude, should I wait? Like, is this dumb? You know, is this stupid right now to do this? And, you know, at the time they were talking about like lockdowns and, or like, you know, like all these regulations and shit. I was just like, fuck, I don't know. But, you know, I think we had a conversation. You said one thing that was just really like, maybe you didn't even know this, dude. But, you know, I was just like, I remember you said something along the lines of like, you know, sometimes the universe opens a door and you either walk through it or you don't.
Right.
And sometimes you don't, that door doesn't come back, you know? I remember
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. In life sometimes, and you don't always realize it at that time. Door's sitting open right in front of you and you're like scratching your head going, should I do this?
Yeah. You're looking around and it's like.
Looking for a sign.
Yeah, and it's like, dude, there it is, you know? But it's yeah, man. I mean, you know, but just
that's awesome.
Being terrified and I don't know, man. Like, dude, honestly, like that really helped me.
Awesome. Oh,
you know,
cheers to that, man.
Yeah, man.
Well, it's great to have you as a neighbor.
Buddy. Yeah, dude. No, dude,
really great to have you as a neighbor.
Yeah, man. It's been awesome. It's been an honor. Like you know, like it's been cool to see. You know, I don't know, dude. I mean, you saw when I first moved in.
Oh, yeah.
And I was freaking out. And I remember, here's the other thing. You know, it's like, I think like the first week that I was here, I guess you probably saw how stressed and how, you know, I was. And you're like, dude, come on over, man. And I went over to his shop and you poured me some tequila. And I think I was kind of telling you what was kind of going in my head and, you know, like the plan. Because at the time I was like, if I work on the room in the front, I just paint it and I just make it look somewhat presentable. And then I'll get a bench in there and then I'll just start taking in work. Because I think I've never stopped. You know, I've never like not taken in work.
Right.
And I think I was like nervous. Like, first of all, I'm moving and, you know, what if a lot of my clients don't follow me? There's that. And then.
And it's hard moving out of your own comfortable house situation. It's like it's comfortable.
Yeah.
It's set up.
Yeah.
To move everything out, your whole business out. It's a huge move.
Yeah. And not only that, dude, I hate driving. I fucking can't stand it, dude.
Right.
To this day, that's why I'll still prefer to take the bus.
Wow. But that was daunting. That's probably a big decision to be like, I got to drive every day.
Dude,
I thought the same thing because I moved out of my home shop.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have known me from the home shop. We spent 5 years at my house in Silver Lake. And we have 2 houses on the property. And I was fortunate to buy this property 20 years ago, like 2001. and things were pretty cheap back then.
Dude, that's crazy.
So we rent out the front house.
Jealous.
The back house has upstairs where Tawny and I live. It's like a little tree house, old Spanish style, 20s. Cool little spot. But underneath it, there's 3 garages. So I basically took over the garages and had my wood shop outside alongside the front house. And, it was like walk to work every day, upstairs, downstairs. And here I was.
Yeah.
It was easy. It was easy. We'd make lunch every day and sat out under the big avocado tree, me and the 2 or 3 people who were always working with me or whatever, however many, 1 or whatever many people it was. We would make lunches and hang out and have like an hour-long lunch with like a bottle of wine sometime and take it easy. I mean, we were pretty lax. But when I thought about moving, and actually my wife, Tawny, who she had this space before I had my space next door. So Tawny's really the one that started this whole thing. She's an artist, a singer, a songwriter, a sculptor, a painter, a wire sculptor. So she was looking for a space because, quite honestly, I drove her out of our house with all the noise. Okay? Because I was like in this space of trying to design my own tube amps and doing repairs, because I was doing repairs for like multiple vintage shops around LA. They take in repairs and be like, hey man, we got another 10 amps. And so I was doing repairs at the house, which was fairly noisy. And then I'm designing my amps, and sometimes late into the night, I'm down there just hitting a freaking guitar chord for 20, 30 minutes straight as I'm tweaking a box like this with a resistor on it or something, changing voltages, changing values of stuff. And she's just like, this is insane. I can't work. I can't write music. I can't do anything with noise happening all the time. So she literally was like, I'm going to find another space where I can go and be creative. She found this physical space.
That's crazy.
Which Luisa's space, you guys, a lot of you probably been here, but it's about 1,000 square feet, like 3 different rooms. So her and another friend of ours, they basically moved in, our friend Hill, who I helped him build this room. So we actually floated this floor. You can see some of the Black Volt influence with some of the grill cloths. We did the soundproofing on it. We angled the walls, angled the ceilings. We did all of this.
Dude, that's crazy. It's so funny because every time somebody new comes in and they walk in, especially like when I first moved in, because dude, whatever, I do like fresh paint, I painted the floors and then, patched some patchwork or whatever. And then people would walk in here and they were like, dude, this is incredible. You did this? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I would just like, they would just ramble on in my head. I'm like, yeah, I wish and then they're done. I'm like, actually, my buddy Gio ended up doing this. It's crazy. I just inherited it, but
it's crazy. But it was like almost like custom built for you.
It was, dude. It's amazing. I love it.
And look at you now. I mean, you moved in. The space is beautiful. You got all your gear in here and doing a podcast.
Yeah, dude, it's cool, man.
Within less than a year.
Yeah, dude. Dude, that's what I'm saying. But it's like, so what I was gonna say is, I remember I was telling you, it's like, oh, dude, this is the plan and blah blah blah, whatever. And then it's like, dude, it's like, yeah, you poured me some tequila, and I think we started drinking, and I was just like, I think I was like, like I already knew what I really should have been doing. I think you just really helped me solidify it, like, because I was like, I don't know, man. There's a part of me that like I just kind of want to take work and really just focus on the shop and just really build it up and take my time and do it right, as opposed to like this insane. Now I look back and I'm like, insane. That would have been so dumb
to stop taking in work.
To take in work and then pretend like I would have had the time and the energy at the end of the day to work on the. Right. It's like, dude, no way.
Right, because I remember you saying specifically, you were like, I'm going to take a few days and paint it and decorate it, and then jump back into work. And I think I said something like, you're going to need more than a few days. Man. I said, give yourself the time. Because setting up a shop, it took me probably 3 months to build out my shop. So I was like, give yourself some time. You got to get benches. You got to organize your tools. You got to get your workflow, all of that. And you were like, oh, okay. I'm like, just give yourself the space.
Yeah, I think seeing someone, it's like, someone that's already done it, like, tell me that, like, was just really comforting and just like, okay, like, this is okay, and just telling my clients, hey, like, I'm going to take some time, but we're all going to benefit from it.
I'm coming back bigger and better.
Yeah, just trust me, you know. And it was so cool because everybody, that fear of like, oh, dude, well, what if I lose people and blah, blah, blah. Like, you kind of have to go through. I had to go through it to like really kind of just understand that. No, as long as the work is good and you're always who you are, like,
right,
people are willing to wait.
Right.
And that's it, you know, and that's what happened. And, you know, like, I think I finally opened up officially, like, at the beginning of March, and it was cool, you know. I was like, holy shit, I have a shop now, and I've dreamt about this forever, and it just happened, you know. But again, dude, it's like, it is wild because, you know, a similar thing happened with me and my wife, you know, Moa, and it's like, but we lived in an apartment, and we had like the back office was kind of like my shop / her studio where we were both going to share. But dude, by the end of it, it's like it looked like a fucking Guitar Center garage or like a warehouse full of guitars and parts everywhere. And I remember she went away for something, and like she came back earlier than what I thought she was, you know, and I was freaking out because I heard the door and I was like, fuck, because I had 3 guitars. I had 1 guitar on my bench that I was working on. I had a guitar clamped in the living room on that table. And then I had my tech box opened in the kitchen.
Oh my God.
With stuff on it. And I remember she's just like, she walked in, I was just like, oh fuck. Oh shit. You know, and I was like, all right, like just give me like 30 minutes and I'll clean everything up or whatever. And then she had a bad day or something too, and she just came home. I remember she's just like, hey, like, I get it, but it would be nice if
the whole house wasn't a workshop.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like she's trying to cook or something. I was just like, oh yeah, babe. And I just remember thinking, dude,
Let me get my router out of the sink and get this guitar neck off the kitchen table.
Dude, I would paint. And it's like we had this little balcony, dude. And it's like, dude, I would paint out there. Dude, all kinds of fucked up, dude. I remember once I did this glitter guitar, and I sprayed some like this glitter spray, and dude, it just got it just a fucking mess, man.
Wow.
But you know, one of those things where it's like you do what you have to do, but then also understanding like, hey, maybe it's time for you to take that risk. And just and whatever, fuck it. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Right. But at least this is where you're at now.
Right.
Like, you something's going to give.
Big decision, man. It's scary. It's scary to make those kind of changes. And it's a lot of responsibility and financial responsibility and all of that. Yeah. It takes a lot.
Oh, yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah, man. But it's funny because once I, you know, finally moved out and, you know, pulled the trigger on it and got over the fear of just like, okay, like, you know, oh, everyone is still here. All my clients. Oh, okay, cool. Everything seems like it's gonna work out.
And your workload increased massively as soon as you got in. Like, I remember,
insane.
You had your weight rack. Was full of guitars. You were like, "This is my." I was like, "What?"
Yeah,
you had like 50 guitars waiting to be repaired or something.
It's, you know, wild. And
like,
you know, but and then even that's like it helped our relationship too, in the sense where it's like, oh, okay, like a lot of our tension was coming from that, you know, like the importance of space,
right?
You know, and,
oh man, and now you go home and probably have like a regular home relationship.
Oh, yeah, dude, yeah, and it's nice too because like, you know, like I had certain clients that were like, hey man, like I know it's a little too far for me, like is there any way I can drop off at the house? And it's like just being like, no, this is my home, and if you don't respect that, like, I'm sorry, you know, like, if I'm too far for you, I get it. Totally cool. Like, you know, there's a lot of good people out there. Like, I need that fucking space so much now, you know, and it is nice to like, whatever I'll do late nights here, but once I'm home, that's it. It's not in your face where it's like when we were there, you know, I'd be watching the movie trying to relax and I'm looking over and it's like, oh yeah, there it is. It's fucking staring at me, you know, like just fucking with you, man.
So-and-so's Telecaster over there. I need to finish.
Exactly. You know, so no, man, it's been cool. But honestly, dude, like, like you helped me out a lot, man.
Awesome, man.
And I really, really, really
Thanks, dude.
appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah,
I'm
man.
so stoked you're here, and it's been great seeing you grow, and great having you as a neighbor.
Yeah, man, dude.
Good
Boyle
stuff.
Heights, man.
Yeah, Boyle Heights.
You know, we're trying to do a thing out here. We're trying to get more people to come to the east side.
Yeah,
it's a cool vibe, man.
It's a great vibe. It's mellow. It's quiet. There's no traffic over here. There's a park at the end of our street. You know.
How long have you been here?
I've been here 4 years now. 4 years. And
so let's pick up
for 5 years.
Sorry, let's pick up where, because I think it's an interesting story. So Tawny moved here,
right?
And then you followed her here.
The space next door to her, so she's an artist.
Yeah.
The space next door to her was another artist who was getting bigger and doing bigger things and starting to show at museums or something. So she moved out, and Tawny was like, "Why don't you take the space next door?" Because it's going to be open. And I was like, oh, rent? Like, I don't really pay rent or whatever.
Yeah.
Or it was minimal, whatever I was paying us for like tax reasons or whatever at the house. Whatever. So I was like, oh, rent. And I got to build benches into the thing. And there's not really a wood shop because there was no wood shop. You know, we have a full wood shop behind our electronic shop that I basically built from the ground up. So sort of long story short, I moved in, but Tawny said, listen, you can't blow me out. You can't come here and be super loud because I have peace here. Sure enough, after I got all set up and I moved in, I'm loud.
Yeah.
I'm a loud motherfucker. Am I loud?
No, dude, it's rad. I don't mind it. And I like it. It brings, you know what it makes me feel like? It makes me feel like, dude, that fucking guy is working and he's doing stuff. Get off your fucking phone, get off Instagram, and then get to work. You know what I mean? It's like that little reminder of like, oh, that's right. Dude, come on, man.
Shit's happening.
Yeah.
So I basically...
Make some noise too, you know?
I basically, even through the walls, the two separate spaces, I drove her out of here. And I feel bad about it because I drove her out of the house. She's like, I'm finding my own damn space. I'm going to go pay rent somewhere to get an art space that I can think in. And then she's in her art space thinking, and it's like, wah, 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 wah. You know, someone shows up, some rock star shows up, and we're jamming at full volume, and it's like, I'm filming or whatever. And she's just like, this is ridiculous. So she left. She's like, screw you, I'm moving back to the house. So she went back to the house, set up my old garage. We cleared out the garage, put her sculpture studio in there, got the music studio set up. Everything's all set up. So we have a music space and an art space for her there. And she moved out and the space became available.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Weird how certain things just work out.
Yeah, it was not easy because she was pissed at me. She's like, you're like driving me insane with all this volume.
You
know, and like bands would come walking down our driveway 3-4 times a day. Musicians, bands, you know, it'd be like, anybody, Fleet Foxes, Beck, you know, his band, whatever, like whoever. Like, And I'd be like, well, shit, and we'd be doing the thing, and and then we pulled a trailer in to the yard in Silver Lake. Have you ever been to the Silver Lake?
I have not, but you know what? I'm trying to think how I discovered you as a company in the beginning. I think it was Instagram. I think through a tag or something. And I mean, dude, they're visually stunning, you know, like they're so eye catching. It's like eye candy.
Yeah.
Somebody, I mean, the power of social media, you know, one of the good things, but followed your page and then, you know, went to, because it must have been, dude, I don't know, man, but I remember like I ended up on your page, on your website, and then saw what you're about to say about this trailer thing. And I remember thinking, fuck, that's fucking badass, you know? But I think at the time I had, like, I was still working at Guitar Center, dude. I think I had like a solid state amp because it was the only thing I could afford. So I was just like, you know, but I remember thinking like, oh, like if I ever need like an amp repair or something, you know, I got to hit this guy up or something, you know? But anyways, your trailer story,
So the trailer was part of an effort to contain the sound. So that was like the first like Black Volt showroom. So basically myself and Curran, do you know Curran McDowell?
I don't think
Curran's
so.
great. Curran's amazing. He's a great drummer and he's a steel player and a guitar player. And all kinds of cool stuff. But he's been a big supporter of mine and kind of a partner for years. He was working with me for years at the house. And me and Curran, we like went out to lunch or something, and we saw on Silver Lake Boulevard and Bellevue by the mobile station, by the 101 entrance, there was a huge like Beacons Moving Company or something. There was like a thing right there, huge building around the corner. It was all about moving and storage or whatever. And they were closing down and they sold the building, and they were like sign outside that said selling all storage containers in this yard, inquire or whatever. So we're like looking at each other.
Yeah.
And we actually had a whisper room. We bought like a whisper room from somebody. You know those whisper rooms? They're like soundproof rooms.
Yeah.
We bought one of those. That was literally in my freaking yard in Silver Lake. And it rained one night and it starts pouring through the roof. I'm out there at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm pulling guitars and amps out of a water-soaked whisper room. And I had plastic on the roof, but it like caved in.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, all right, we got to do something real. Because I was trying to soundproof my noise. And this is what we do. It's like amplifiers amplify shit. You know? And some of these are really loud. And, you know, there's a house 4 feet from me in Silver Lake on this side. And then across the yard, there's another one 30 feet away over there. And so we had the whisper room. That didn't work out. We sold it, fortunately. I was able to sell it to somebody.
Holy shit.
So we got our money out of it. And then we walked into that Beacons storage whatever. And there was like this 40-foot trailer. It was like from 1930. Had this rounded front on it. You'd hook up like a tractor trailer, like a truck to it, and tow it down the road in 1940. And like move your house or whatever. It was an original like old school moving truck, and it had 2 doors on the sides that opened up, 2 big doors in the back. So like we saw that thing, we walked inside of it, and I remember it was like a mechanic had it, like some sort of auto mechanic or truck mechanic, covered in grease and oil, and Playboy pictures on the walls, still stuck on the walls. It was like plywood on the walls and metal framed, like you know, it was crazy. We were just like, our eyes were just, oh my God, this is amazing. It was like this room, like 40 feet long.
Holy shit.
With no soundproofing. And it was like $1,200. So we went in and talked to the lady, and we're like, if you can get this thing towed up the street to my house, it was like a block away, we'll buy it. And she was like, all right, we'll talk to the driver and see what we can do. And she called me the next day and was like, yeah, we can have it towed up tomorrow and bring us the money. And we're like, all right. So they did, and the guy drives the thing up the street, and I hired like a massive, like a construction company, like huge, like forklifts and stuff to come. I hired them to come basically move the trailer into the yard. So I had to go down the driveway, past the front house, and then around between the 2 houses and sit on one side of the yard. So I told the driver, I said, listen, I'm not paying you until I make sure I can get this thing in the property because it's so big. We had to get it down the driveway and then turn it around with these like construction forklifts that were made for really heavy duty loads.
Holy shit, dude.
So it was crazy. So the driver, he's waiting for his money. The guy's driving the truck. He's out front on the street. And then the forklifts are like pulling the thing down the driveway. And it's like, oh shit, we got to pull it back and move it over. It's going to tear the tree down. It's going to get the rain gutters and all this crazy stuff. And we get it down the driveway. And then we had to turn it around like 180. So we get it down there, and it was like 3 hours later, the driver's like, listen, man, he's walking down my driveway. I need the money. I can't stand here all day waiting for your ass. This is ridiculous. I'm like, dude, if it won't fit in my property, I'm not buying the trailer. I'm not going to leave it on the street for the rest of my life. And be out $1,200 plus the cost of, $1,000 for this construction company or whatever.
This poor fucking guy.
So he's really pissed off. And he's like, old school dude with like a beard and big belt buckle and like cowboy boots. And he's just like, this is fucking bullshit, man. And I was like, just deal with it or go have lunch and come back, whatever. And we got the thing halfway turned around, and the forklifts weren't quite heavy duty enough to really like lift it and move it. And one of those arms, like when they take it off the truck, the arms broke, and the thing leaned over into my house, and it was it was like teetering on the one arm, and the other one's pushed in, and it's just like teetering. And it was so insane. He broke the huge avocado tree, broke like half of the tree branches off of it. The leg broke. He had to lift the thing up and move it over and get it against the side of the property. It was insane. We would have been better off with like a helicopter. like a military helicopter.
Yeah.
So we got the thing in after hours. I paid the guy, everyone left, and we were just like, oh my God. It was insane.
Was Tony like,
day.
dude, what the fuck are you doing?
We immediately started like soundproofing it.
Yeah.
We ran electrical to it from the main breaker box for my house. Ran a rigid conduit over.
Yeah.
Also, I'm like a licensed general contractor. I have my license. So I've like built stuff. My brother owns restaurants. So I built some of his restaurants. I got my license. I used to do like loft conversion.
Yeah.
Like I was seeing downtown LA starting to develop 20 years ago, going, wow, there's all this empty space. And so I was kind of dabbling in that for a minute, after I was doing music full time for years. That's all I was doing was professionally doing studio stuff and playing and studio and whatever. And then I kind of was a little bit like, I'm kind of trying some different stuff. So I definitely understand the entire construction process. So we literally like rigid conduit from the box to the trailer, wired it all up, built a room within a room, floated the floors, built a full-blown soundproof space. So at the end of that, and a lot of money later, we just had a fully soundproofed like jam space, showroom, recording space right there outside the garage between the two houses. And we could go in there at any given point and rock out at full volume. You could barely hear it. It was just like a whisper, which was amazing in Silver Lake, in the hills of Silver Lake, to just be like playing full volume, drums, bass, whoever, whatever, just like, here we go.
Fuck, man.
Yeah, and it's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
I was going to ask you.
And the only way it's ever coming out is with a helicopter. Because now it weighs about fucking 5 tons more than it weighed when it came in.
Yeah. Dude, that is wild, man.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I look back and just go, man, I must be.
What year was that?
It was probably, I started Black Volt in like 2014. So Black Volt's only really been in existence for about 8 years, 7, 8 years. So not really that long. So I was there for 4-ish years and here for 4-ish years. It's been about 8 years.
Yeah. So let's maybe talk about that. Like, are you good? Do you want more?
I'm good.
A little splashy splash?
I'm trying to take it slow.
Yeah? Okay. Cool. All right. He's taking it slow, y'all. I know. I'm like.
It's good, though.
I know. Buffalo Trace, dude. Come on. Sponsor us, son. Yeah, so how'd you get into it? I mean, dude, first time I met you in person was because one of my clients, I guess a mutual client whose name is also Gio. I worked on his guitars and
Gio Leone.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Gio's great. Love Gio.
Shout out Gio. What's up, buddy?
Gio Leone. And I'm a Gio L too.
You are?
Gio Loria.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Gio Leone. And he actually played in Tawny's band with us for a while.
Yeah.
So we played together quite a bit as well.
That boy can play, man.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah,
he's a good steel player too.
But Gio had another spot in the corner.
This Gio.
Yeah, you. And that became your showroom.
That was the next Black Volt showroom.
That was the next Black Volt showroom. And it was amazing. I remember I walked in there and I was like, this is what I've been dreaming of as far as like the aesthetics of it and everything. I was like, holy fuck, brick wall. Like, dude,
chandeliers.
Yeah. Oh, dude, so beautiful.
Stained the floors, the concrete floors red, ground them out with diamond blades.
Yeah.
Stained them red.
Dude, beautiful, man. Dude, beautiful.
Thanks, man.
Anyways, I remember we walked in and you had a show. Like for your like grand opening. I think it was
the very first one.
I think so, man.
Did you come to the very first one?
I think
before there was even a bathroom in it?
I think so.
Weren't you there then?
Yes, because we had to walk through the back to come to your shop to use that restroom. Yeah. Because I think Mo had to pee or something like that.
Yeah, you came to the shop.
Yeah.
Amazing. That's amazing you were at that first show.
Yeah, dude.
We did meet that night, talked a little bit.
Yeah. And I was just kind of blown away. I was like, dude, fuck, man. I remember I was like, not that I had it, dude. I remember I got pretty drunk. And then I was like, I told Mom, I was like, I think I'm going to buy one of his amps right now.
Oh.
And then she's like, babe, just, we're not rolling like that yet. You know what I mean? It's like, but anyways, dude, that's like, I remember that's when I met you and I was just like, dude, this is fucking rad. And I got to see your amps. And then I saw you again at NAMM. And then, I just kept running into you. And then.
Right. I think that night the Mastersons played.
Yes, dude. And I was just like...
Yeah, we had a bunch of different folks
Dude, it was a good time, man. It was a
James Troussart was there.
Yeah.
Olivier, who works with Troussart, worked with him for years, who now works with me building guitars.
Yeah.
Amazing. Tawny played.
Yeah.
We did like some old New Orleans. Fabian Jolivet.
Yes.
Grumps.
Yeah.
Grumps played drums. It was the first.
He did.
I think it was a second time I met Grumps, but the Mastersons recommended Grumps to come play. He's kind of a crazy dude. He's weird, but he's really cool and he's really wacky. He's a great drummer, and it's like all this like.
Yeah.
And he came and played drums with us, and ended up working with me for a while. Really, really interesting guy, really cool guy. Yeah. He played drums that night.
Dude, yeah.
That was really inspired by because the space wasn't done. I was working on the space. I was like breaking stucco off the freaking brick walls myself. Did most of that. It's ridiculous. And then I hired people to come in and help at some point. But we were redoing the place. But Doyle's Coils. You know, Doyle's Coils, clones, true clones, Doyle, I think Max is the guy that runs it. Doyle, I'm spacing on his last name. He worked with Les Paul, Tom Doyle. Worked with Les Paul his whole life. He was with Les Paul for like 50 years until Les passed away. Tom Doyle, he was on the cover of one of the Guitar Player magazines where he's got like one of Les Paul's like original guitars. And he was at the NAMM show doing talks and stuff. He knows everything Les Paul knows pretty much. Yeah. He's just not Les Paul.
Yeah.
And those guys were going to do an event here in LA. And they basically have taken on Les Paul's work, recreating Les Paul's original humbucker ideas, which he didn't want him to be woofy and too low-endy and have the clarity, but still have the distortion of a humbucker. And so they're making Doyle's Coils, which are really great pickups. And they do Les Pauls, these clones of like aged Les Pauls. So they're doing really great work. And they wanted to do an event in LA, and they were going to feature Chris Masterson because Chris Masterson has one of their guitars. We love Chris Masterson. And the Mastersons are awesome. And Chris plays.
Dude, they live like up the street from me, which is so crazy.
Yeah, they're right up the street from me.
So it's
and Chris is part of the family, and he plays Black Volt amps, which is awesome. And we love those guys. But they were going to feature Chris as one of their players. To show off their guitars and their pickups and stuff. And they didn't really have a venue. So I think Chris might have recommended me, but then they called me up and were like, hey, we're thinking about doing this event. And we were like, yeah, let's do something cool. Like some nice cheeses and wines and some drinks. And we'll have some little performances and people can just hang. And we were like, all right. So the space was not done. And I demoed the bathroom out completely. It was nothing but like a 4-inch drain pipe. So we were like, we'll try to get it done enough to throw an event, which we did. We put a sound system in with some lights, and we made it groovy. It's like a bombed out, old 1908 building, brick walls and stuff. So he backed out at the last minute. Like 2 weeks before, he was like, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to make it. I got some personal issues and blah, 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 and all this stuff. And they backed out. And we ended up saying, you know what? Talked to Chris and everyone who was involved. And we're like, you want to just do it? And I had, 6 of James Troussart's guitars on the wall and a bunch of vintage guitars. SS Vintage from Chicago sent me 20 guitars to put on the wall, which was amazing. These guys are insane. Insanely cool. And super supportive. Scott Silver and company and George. So we said, let's do it. So we did the event, and that was the night. That was that first night.
Dude, wild, man. That's crazy. But I remember that's when I discovered this whole area. I was like, and then like I said, the other Gio, it's like either I had a piss or Mo had a pee or some shit, but he walked us to your shop. And that's the first time I actually saw it. Going down the little stairs, and I was like, "Holy fuck, man! This is fucking rad, man!"
Shit everywhere,
dude. I mean, it is. It's like a
museum.
It's a madman lab, dude. But it's cool, dude. It's so rad to go. And I always tell you, man. I always give you compliments on like the patina. Like the real. You walk into his shop and it looks like he's been there for like 50 years, but it's cool. It's like these old radios and things.
Stuff like
this. Yeah, stuff like this. And he was trying to explain to me earlier what it was, and we'll get into it, but it's like, dude, it just looks cool. I don't know what the fuck it does. He explained to me. I'm like, dude, sure, man. All right. That sounds cool. We'll get into it. But yeah, man, it's a cool area, and it's just it's weird to like now I'm here, but back to how you got started, because that's what I was gonna say. I was like, how the fuck did I start telling this story about this party thing, because you were playing bass, And I was like, yeah, stand up and like,
we ended up going into some jams.
Yeah. And I was just like, dude, fuck, man, like. You can play, and I don't mean that like, oh, just, you just never know. I mean, so many luthiers that, dude, they can barely play a C chord, and it's like whatever, like nothing, like I don't mean that as like like talking shit, but it's like, dude, you really play, man. I was like, holy fuck,
man.
dude.
Thank you.
And so that's when I knew that you were a player, and like more that I've talked to you and stuff like that. So because I don't think I even know. I was like, where are we? Like originally from, and how'd you end up here and the whole music stuff?
I was actually born in Fullerton, sunny Fullerton, California.
Damn, dude.
Which is basically in the shadows of the Fender factory.
Yeah.
So, I was a surfer and musician and all that, and a skateboarder. Total like Southern California like, dude.
Right on, dude.
I had hair down to my waist.
Yeah.
and I, even though I wasn't, it's so weird because like, obviously the music thing was part of my life. I was always into music, and my friends as teenagers, their dads had like classic Fender stuff, and Marshall stuff and all that. But I don't know. It really soaked into my genes, like that whole thing. But I actually, like, nobody even knows, but like I made my first guitar when I was like 12 years old.
Dude, yeah.
I made a guitar when I was like 12. It's like a plywood box that's shaped like a star for the like horns.
Oh, really?
It's like a cut down 2x4 as a neck, just 4 tuners on it, half a pipe cut down for the. I mean, it's like a full on little guitar. I was 12, dude.
What inspired that?
I have no idea. I didn't start playing clarinet till I was about 12 or 13. It was my first instrument.
Yeah. Holy shit.
So dude, and I think my mom still has it like in her attic or something.
Oh, dude.
But I look back and go, what was I doing building a guitar at 12 years old?
Yeah. Dude, that's pretty badass, man.
It's insane. Because it's super like, it's like, it's like this, my family's 100% Italian.
Yeah.
So it's like this old school Italian, like, tough as like an oak tree kind of thing, like this will of like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to get it done. Or I'm going to learn how to do it and get this thing done. Even if I'm just like forging out some whole new path. Which was building like completely, a whole like aesthetic and line and sound of an amp from scratch. It was like a whole thing. It takes so much force to like birth something, as building your shop and changing your whole thing. It's like it takes a lot. But taking something, out of just scrap, left behind goods, salvaged wood, old components, almost everything I built originally was all out of like salvaged military gear and old components and old everything.
Yeah.
It was pretty crazy.
Did you, maybe because for me, like I moved out here for the music, being in bands, doing that shit or whatever, hoping that, oh, cool, like becoming super famous and whatever, the dream, as they say it. But, and then, like.
Where were you born?
Texas, El Paso.
Right. El Paso,
It's a
Texas, small town, right?
Oh, dude. I mean, it's not anymore, but
20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, dude. It's just like, and it's a border town. I think that's what's special about El Paso, because like I talked to so many friends, and they're like, oh yeah, El Paso, like I drove through there. Everybody just fucking drives through there,
Yeah,
it's like,
it's not a place people hang out.
It's not. And dude, trust me, I get it. I understand that. It's like, and then growing, like now that I've lived in LA for almost 12 years, and it's like it makes you appreciate when you're not where you're from more. Or it's like, now I look back and it's like, oh, like I really love it. I love what it is. But when you grow up, rebellious and, man, fuck this place. I want to go to LA and, fucking the concrete jungle, and
a lot of people do it.
And it's just like, but now I appreciate what it is, and I love it, and shout out to my El Paso peeps and Juarez, and it's like, but so I think it's not, but I always dabbled with, like, me personally, I was very tactile. Like I've told you, like my dad made boots. Unfortunately, I didn't have any interest in it. I thought it was so dumb.
Right.
It's like, dude, you're making boots. Like, I don't want to touch feet, and fuck that. That's gross, And now I'm like,
he was a craftsman.
Holy fuck. but I've always been tactile, like using his tools, and same thing, dude, making pedal board, like when I got into guitar, like using his bandsaw and shit that I shouldn't have been touching. Like, thank God I didn't fucking cut a limb or anything like that, just figuring it out.
Right.
But so moving here, and then, like being like, oh, doing the music stuff, but also like, man, I really have this weird like interest in like the mechanics of the instrument, and obsessed with Leo and
Right.
all that, just like an obsession that I don't know where the fuck it came, or just okay, cool, like I'm playing this thing and it's cool, but why is it cool? And what do I like about it?
Why has it survived since 1940?
Exactly. So all these things, and then getting into it, and like I went to school for it, and that really was just kind of like the, like I didn't learn. Everyone's always like, "Oh, cool, you went to school, you learned everything." It's like, dude, no. It's like it was just like
it's just a part of your foundation.
Yeah, exactly. But like working with other luthiers around town and other shops, and just loving it, man. Just like loving all that. But I guess it's not. It's like the muse. I followed the music muse here, and then that led me to this. But for me, I had to go through that in order for me to discover this other thing.
Right.
So I guess what,
right.
like for you, was it always like, I'm going to build?
Same. Okay. No, because when I came here, dude, I was like going to medical school. Yeah, UCI. It's one of the best biology programs in the country. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to be a surgeon. And that was what I was aiming towards, like heart or brain, heart surgeon, brain surgeon. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do this right. And so as I got in there, started meeting with counselors and got set up, it was like, I realized I had another probably 12 years of school between another.
How old were you? When
2 to 3. I was probably, 2 years out of high school. So I was probably 18.
Okay, cool.
18 or 19. And I was like, wow, 12 more years of school. They're 2 to 3 years of there, and then specializing in something, and then interning somewhere, and spent, I mean, it was like a dozen years to do that level.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to just be like, hey, I'm a family practitioner, like, bend over. It's like I wasn't into that. I wanted to be like
the hard shit.
Yeah, the real shit. I was looking at like, studies of like open skull surgery where they're giving people like electrical charges, and then recalling memories of when they were like little. Stuff they never would have remembered, 2 to 3, 4, 5 years old, stuff that people forgot about years ago, experiences and whatever. And they were conscious, and their brain was open, their skull was cut open, and they're charging it because it's electrical. I guess it's kind of similar to what I do now. Electrical impulses in an open live circuit. So somehow I guess I accomplished that.
Yeah. Dude, that's so then what was the change? What was
as we were saying, like following your dream of music to the big city, the glowing light over the hill. I was in multiple bands. I was always in different bands, and I was, my brother and I played. He played guitar, and I played bass, and I was also, aspiring guitarist. But he was like the, winning like the guitar contest, playing Eddie Van Halen and stuff. He could play Eruption, and So we were in different bands, and I was in one band with some folks that were like kind of getting serious and coming to LA and playing shows. And one of the guys in the band, he was like, look, let's move to LA. He was also from that area, Fullerton area. And I'll like get us a house, get us a place or whatever. And, just start paying rent when you can. So he made it really easy for me to just be like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was painting, I was drawing, I was doing like, muscular systems, skeletal systems drawings, nervous system drawings, like all the biological stuff I was studying. I was doing it to learn it even more intensely and more intimately. So I'm an artist, and I was very beautiful drawings of all of this, every bone in the body kind of thing. So I was doing all that, and I was a musician and, all that stuff. So we literally, my parents, the story goes, my parents were in Hawaii for 2 weeks on vacation. And I literally dropped out of school, dropped all my classes, literally cashed out of cashed out of the fucking school thing and was like, I'm going to Hollywood. Moved out before my parents got home.
Oh, man.
And we literally moved in to a studio in Hollywood that was a dance studio. And there was 2 studios, big bow truss building, and the middle one was like a loft. Just one of those hidden away buildings in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And we moved into that loft, me and 2 other guys. So 3 of us moved in. And it was probably the year 95, 94, 95.
Yeah.
So it was like 20-something years ago, 26 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Shit,
it was a while ago.
Yeah.
So we literally, you know, a bunch of youngsters move into Hollywood, move into this building, and just started trying to figure it out. And we were playing shows and stuff. And the woman who owned the building asked us if we could like close up for it at night sometime because there was people doing dance shows and bands rehearsing and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember one specific, just to give you an idea, it was Michael Jackson was in one of the studios rehearsing something, and the other studio was Prince, and in the alley behind it was like Destiny's Child filming a video all in one night. So it was like Michael Jackson, Prince, and like Beyonce.
Yeah.
Before she was real, it was Destiny's Child.
Yeah.
They were all in the same like corner.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And we were like left to like close up the studio that night. So we were like, you know, all in the middle of all that stuff, which was insane.
Yeah.
Because there was like a private room with the 2-way mirror that we could actually go into one of the studios and see like those guys dancing and doing their thing.
Shit.
It was crazy. It was crazy. So I just like dove into Hollywood, was in bands and became like, you know, in multiple bands, but beside the band I was in, got involved with the Black Eyed Peas and was in the Black Eyed Peas like early on and helped develop their thing and was playing with them and recording with them, and Eazy-E signed us from NWA. Yeah. So Eazy-E formed a record label called Ruthless Records, signed the Black Eyed Peas. Yeah. You know, and there's a whole story behind that. But yeah, I mean, I was more bass was more my thing. I was playing upright, which was a really unique thing. You're playing upright, and there was all this stuff going on. Yeah. And I was playing jazz. I was playing orchestral. I was like studying orchestral music. I was really trying to get my act together on the upright because it's a fretless instrument. It's a hard instrument to master. Yeah. So I was doing that, and I was playing with Jack Johnson. He moved here from Hawaii and moved to Santa Barbara. And a friend of ours, they met in the water at Pipeline. At Pipe, they're like in the water. He's like, yeah, I'm moving to like LA coming up pretty soon to like forward my music career. And my buddy was like, oh man, you got to meet my buddy G. He's a great bass player. And so we started playing, and dude, I started like recording some of his early demos because I had a house in Echo Park that I built a studio into. So I was producing some of his early stuff.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
And him and the Malloys, Emmett Malloy was his manager, and they were making some surf films, and Jack had a couple songs in those films. So there was this underground following of the surf community that was showing up. When Jack got to LA and we started playing, it was like the Mint and all these local like LA clubs. And like 200-300 people would show up. Yeah. You know, which was crazy.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
And like Everlast, when Everlast left House of Pain. Yeah. I started working with Everlast and recording his first big solo record, which is Whitey Ford Sings the Blues. Then you really might know what it's like. To have to lose. So I did all the string arranging on that, and like twisted their arms, the SD50s, stimulated dummies, were his producers, to white guys from like Brooklyn who didn't know shit about a violin. I was like, man, I'm working with a 52-piece orchestra. Like, let's record live strings on this. And they were like, yo, B. We don't know shit about that, B. You know, what's the budget, B? So like I was like, yeah, they gave me a budget, and we recorded a full string section, and I conducted it and wrote the whole thing. And 2 months later, it was like on the radio, like everywhere.
Dude, that's crazy, man.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy.
Fuck. Okay, so then you're going down. It seems like it's like amazing. It's incredible. Then what made like the little turn? You know, that you're like, hey, I think I want to fucking build some amps. Like, where'd that come from?
I think all the way through being a musician, all those years, I was obsessed with tone, and I was obsessed with trying to make stuff work right. Because as you know, and every musician who's probably, you know, owns a piece of gear knows that at some point, especially if it's vintage gear, it needs maintenance, or it's rattling, or the speaker blows, or a tube blows, or something goes. So, you know, if I'm going into a session, I was like, you know, I want my stuff to be really good, and you know, really want to be on. I really want to have my gear together and my stuff together.
Yeah.
You know, so basically, I was just before I really knew much about the science of it, I was just kind of, I guess I had an ear for it and a feel for trying to like improve my own stuff, and was doing that for a while. But I guess at some point, when around, I don't know, a few years later, around you know, 2000-ish or whatever, I ended up buying a house in Echo Park because I was like, wow, like I made some money doing this stuff. It wasn't like a ton of money. I wasn't like I'm retiring or anything. I just made some money. I was like, I literally bought one of those old Victorian houses in Angelino Heights.
Holy dude.
Yeah. It was like windows were out of the upstairs. It had scaffolding around it. It was.
I mean, most people don't know, like if you're not from LA or whatever, but I mean, it's like the two places, I mean, Echo Park and Silver Lake. It's like
hot spot.
Yeah, I mean, now, you know, I was never here. I mean, dude, I moved here when it was 2009. You know, not a clue. No idea, dude. Fucking no clue what was going on. I kind of miss it, to be honest with you, like the ignorance of like not knowing that you know, like the whole thing that was happening with the stock market, the housing market, like, dude, I
didn't either. I really didn't know either. I mean, even though I'm a little older than you, I got a few years head start on you, but at that point, I didn't know anything about real estate. But I was like, you know, let's buy a house, and my mom was really supportive. She was like, yeah, let's buy you kids a house, and you know, and so she was really supportive and helped get behind me and do that, and so literally, I mean, I found this house in Echo Park. It was a huge house. I'm going to build a studio in it. So like, this house is like facing downtown LA. It's like a mile outside of downtown. So the buildings are just like skyrocketing out of the ground. Really beautiful. It had these huge windows and stuff. And so I basically started like restoring that house. And I met Tawny about that time. She kind of started to come in the picture and then helped me do that. So I like built a studio, had some help, restored the house. And I had never really done construction before of any sort, but I happened to have a couple guys next door who were like general contractors. These like surfer dudes from like the Valley, who were like total quintessential, like stereotype, like surfer skater dudes from the fucking Valley, bro. Like, you don't do a coved ceiling like that, man. You know, here's how you do it. Teach me how to do stuff. Like, turn me on to an electrician who came in and rewired the house. And so I was like, whoa. So I did all of this, and was doing music and all that. And then a few years passed, and some real estate person goes, oh, you've got a ton of equity in this house. I was like, what's equity? I know what a flat 5 half diminished chord is. You know, give me a jazz chart or an orchestral chart, I'll play the shit out of it, but I don't know what equity is. So
What'd you call me?
So I like literally ended up like basically selling the house, and Tawny and I bought our house in Silver Lake, which is where everything progressed from there. But that was where that whole musical thing led. But through doing the construction and stuff, I was like, oh, construction, I can restore stuff, and the real estate market. So I kind of took a little bit of a detour and got involved in the loft thing, because I'm like, wow, the loft thing was like, I actually did restore a couple big loft buildings. And I was like reaching out for people with big money to help. It was like, oh, how do I restore the space? And so some people saw the vision and were like, oh, we're in. So we partnered up and restored a couple big buildings and that whole thing, which was like crazy. Talking about massive projects, you know.
Dude.
So that was kind of a whole, so it kind of detoured me out of trying to be a professional musician a little bit, you know, for better or for worse. So that was kind of a little bit of a stepping stone on the trail. But yeah, it was when I really was continue to work with amps and do all that. It was so that was
So then you get your house in Silver Lake and you're like, I'm going to repair amps.
It kind of happened organically. I think like a lot of stuff does. Caveman Vintage Music, which was in Chinatown.
Yeah.
Not far from here.
Yeah.
Asked me, they're like, hey, we lost our repair guy. You want to do our repairs? And I was kind of like, sure.
Yeah.
But honestly, I didn't feel like I had the experience or the know-how to really take on like 10 amps a week. I was doing cool stuff and had done a few custom jobs for folks, and I was doing that, but I didn't really know the science of it at that point.
Yeah.
It's
a lot of just dabbling, like trying shit and
buying PV amps and modding them.
Yeah.
Yeah, modding my own stuff. Yeah, all that. So kind of next chapter is at that point, spurred by this opportunity to start restoring and repairing amps for other people. I basically, huge, like talk about a door opening up. Like I literally went up to Aspen Pittman's, and Aspen is the guy who invented the Groove Tubes label and the Groove Tubes company and all that. And he did a lot of stuff. He was an inventor and a designer and an electrician and an electronics engineer and all of that.
Yeah.
He did a lot of amazing stuff. And Aspen, for those of you who don't know, Aspen just passed away like not too long ago, just a couple years ago. And Aspen was a friend of mine. He's a really smart guy. So I basically went to Aspen's and I said, hey, Aspen, I've been given an opportunity to do a lot of repairs, amp repairs. And I'm trying to build my own amps because I wanted to build my own amp. And I remember one thing he said to me, couple things, but one of the things that always stuck with me was, he's like, why do you want to build amps? I was like, man, I just feel like I can build a better amplifier. And he goes, I guess there's always room for one more on the ship of fools. And I kind of scratched my head and I was like, I didn't quite get it at the moment.
Dude, that's so rad. I love that.
There's always room for one more on the ship of fools. And he's like, all right. So he goes, listen, I used to repair amps years ago and build guitar amps. I'm not doing that anymore. He's building his tube microphones and his tube preamps and all his cool studio stuff. He had a killer studio he built on his complex up in old San Bernardino, like way up in kind of the valley. There's this old San Bernardino town. I think that's what it's called. Funky, cool, old historic town. And he had like this complex there. And it was like, like my shop, like times 10. It was like a 10,000 square foot
Jesus Christ
museum.
Yeah.
Old gear, old tubes, old everything. He sold me a tweed Princeton that I still have. Dylan Day. Where's Dylan? Dylan always wants that amp.
Yeah.
Dylan says it's one of the best tweed. Anyway, so he sold me a tweed Princeton back at that time for, a few $100. He's like, I think it's an old one, like I'll give it to you for, $300 or something. I was like, all right. Yeah, like a tweed Princeton. I mean, that was, it was a few years ago, but that's, that stuff now. It's like anything that says tweed on it. It's holy grail.
Yeah.
But he said, basically what he said to me was, listen, I don't do that stuff anymore, but my friend Dave Riddle does. And Dave Riddle is the guy that kind of really changed my life. So he literally goes, I'll call Dave and he can build you a custom variacs and any kind of test equipment, calibration equipment. He builds it all. So he gets on the phone like right that second and he dials me, hey Dave, I got my buddy Gio here. He wants some test gear and you should meet him. You guys should meet. And he's like, all right, send him up here. So like I went and saw Dave Riddle and dude, first person probably in my life ever that goes, what's your highest level of education? What did you want to do in your life? Why you want to build amps? How many amps have you fixed? Like he wanted to know everything. And I was like, wow, this guy's insane. But he was really like interested in who I was, where I was coming from, where I grew up, how old I was, what my highest level of education was, why I wanted to be a doctor, all this stuff. It's just really crazy. But he had this, another 10,000 square foot warehouse on the Van Nuys airport. Up in Van Nuys. Yeah. And there's this airport up there, which most people don't even know. I didn't even know it existed.
The airport?
Yeah. I don't go to Van Nuys. I don't go to the fucking valley.
Yeah, I think I always done like I Google anything and it's like I see like the Van Nuys airport. I'm like,
huge.
The fuck is that?
But now I know off of the runway, and it's kind of a private airport. I don't know if it's even a public, like, go take a TWA flight.
Yeah.
Does TWA still exist?
I don't know.
You know, I don't think that it's even I don't know if it's whatever. I mean, it's like a huge airport, but it's kind of a private airport. So there's all these hangars, and a hangar is like you can drive an airplane into it.
Yeah.
The hangar is huge. So he's got one of these big warehouses right off of the runway, basically.
That's so bad.
Like a block off.
Yeah.
And a bunch of his friends are like aviation engineers and stuff. And this one guy, you know, he takes care of like Tom Cruise's P-51 fighter jet and restores airplanes. And, you know, like these guys fly for fun. Like it's like another world. So he's like this huge brain engineer guy that knows everything about anything a man could ever build. You know? And if he doesn't know about it, he can like reverse engineer it by pulling it apart. And re-engineering it. So I go up there and we start talking and all this stuff. And basically, in a nutshell, he just goes, well, you know, you need the right tools. And I was like, yeah, I don't really understand an oscilloscope. You know, and I can use a multimeter, but I don't know how to like trace the signal through the amp and all this like kind of mysterious stuff that most people don't ever get to that really hands-on with that stuff. So I said, you know what? You've got this amazing test bench here. And he had this test bench that was like 3 tiers of test equipment. So not only could he test anything, but he could generate anything. So if he wanted to generate 5 volts or, you know, 1,000 volts, he could take a machine and dial it up and say, I want to send out 1,000 volts. And he could send it to another machine, piece of test gear, that he could actually like test that and calibrate it and say, oh, this is 5,000 volts. You know, and if you want to put resistance in the middle, he can, you know, send resistance or test resistance. And you could, you know, oscilloscopes, you know, or oscillators that send signal. You know, he basically, he could control any level of sound and electronics and all of that. Not only send it, but receive it and quantify it. Quantifying is a huge part of what we do, you know. So I was just like, you know, the wheels are spinning. He's like 70 years old at that point. He's probably 80 at the no, he's not that old. He's like mid 70s. But I'd met him, you know, I don't know, 2014. So basically I just was like, you know what? Can I just rent a space in your warehouse? I'll set up a bench. You know, I'll clean your fucking floors. I'll clean your bathrooms, like whatever. Can I rent a space? He was like, sure, why not? Sure. I was like, okay, how much? And he's like, don't worry about it. Just when you're ready to fix some amps, just let me know. Give me a call. I don't keep a calendar. He goes, my calendar is like scheduled 5 minutes in advance. This is real. This is a guy who does not have a calendar. Does not have a smartphone.
Dude, that's pretty refreshing to hear.
Dude, crazy. So I call him up
crazy,
a week later. Said, hey, Dave, it's Gio. I have some broken amps I want to come and fix. He said, come on up. So I went up there, and that really like kind of cemented our relationship. And I would try to do stuff, and he'd be like, oh, no, that's how you're going to you're going to crank that thing with a guitar in your hand, trying to work on it with the chassis on the bench. You're going to kill yourself. So he'd like set it up on proper blocks, put a load on it, like proper resistor load, send a signal into it, like a sine wave off of an oscillator. We could watch the sine wave. Here's the input. The sine wave is perfect. You know? Oh, there's a sine wave. Go further down the chain, and what are we looking for? Oh, there's this weird distortion that's happening in the amp. I don't know. It's fine here. It's fine here. It's fine here. Oh, here it is. Watching it with an oscilloscope, because the oscilloscope,
so visually seeing it,
visually watching the screen, and there's like stereo oscilloscopes that'll show the input and the output, and you can watch it anywhere in between. So he started teaching me how to, like, with no guitar in my hand, with a live, you know, 700 volts in some cases, high voltage on your bench, trying to like do this stupid shit. He was like, no, that's not how you do it. So he wouldn't even like teaching me. He was just doing it, saying, "Oh, this is how you do it." And we do it. We do it, and then, you know, another, and you grab the tubes, and you just like tap the thing with a hammer or something, and be like, "Oh, it's got a bad solder joint." It's vibration related. Wow, really? So little by little, after spending years with him, I spent a few years going up there all the time. I really started to comprehend the science of it and start to study the science of it more on my own and see how to really do all that stuff. And, you know, was a turning point. And he also helped me design my own amps, which I was trying to do throughout, which is a whole nother story to get to, you know.
Yeah.
So meeting him really kind of pulled me through the birthing canal of like understanding what's going on inside of these amps, all amps, and reading schematics.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like he literally would not let me. He wouldn't do anything, and he said, "Go print the schematic. If you don't have the schematic, go print it up." So I get on one of his computers and I'd print out the schematic, and he'd be like, "Okay," and we pull out a highlighter. And often we'd like highlight through it if there was a certain area that there was a problem, or we had to go through the whole damn circuit if an amp was modified or something weird was done to it. We would literally go through, either he or I or both of us, usually me or both of us, because sometimes he'd be too busy doing his own thing. He'd say, go through that circuit or go through the entire preamp up to the power tubes, and I want you to confirm that every single solder joint on this amp is matching that schematic. So I'd have to find the right schematic, print it, and then go through it and be like, all right, input, 68K, 1 meg to ground, straight into the grid, moving through it, all of that, and cross it off on the schematic with the highlighter. And like he really taught me how to read a schematic and how important that was. And so it was a huge learning experience for me at that point.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah,
I bet you it was grueling when you were going through it.
It was, but it was exhilarating because I was always learning and just seeing him just wide-eyed going, wow, this is how you control this. This is how you test this. This is how you quantify this, you know, which is just a massive part of everything we do is, you know, calibration and quantification and controlling all of this stuff.
Yeah. Dude, that is what, I mean, because like so you guys know I'm a guitar tech. But, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's like for a while there when I was just like, kind of slow. I was like, I think I can do amps. Why not? You know, it's like, you plug it in. And,
repairing?
Yeah. It's like, dude, I'm talking about like, just, you know, whatever. Like, I think I can do this. Just not understanding. Literally just, you know. So anyways, it's like, yeah, people would bring shit in or whatever. And it's just like, I don't know how to do this. Fuck this.
It gets deep.
I can die.
It gets deep.
You know, so
I realized at that point that it was like, oh man, this is a whole world.
Yeah.
Because now I'm up, like I'm this little, like, you know, David and Goliath. You know, Goliath was huge, right? And David was the little guy. Is that the story?
Yeah.
I was like the little David. And he was like this Goliath of information and knowledge, and he'd been doing it. He's like, when I was 6 years old, I had my first screwdriver, and I took apart the family TV because it was broken. He was 6, and he fixed it.
Insane.
So he knew so much and has had so much experience, and I realized, like, you know, you talk about the rabbit hole. It's like I just kind of went down that rabbit hole, but realized it was such a entirely massive world of knowledge and information. It all stemmed back to like 1930 to like 1950, really, when these beautiful machines were kind of made. You know, the Fender amps, and the Marshall amps were even a little later, but like the Gibson stuff and the Fender stuff, and you know, some of that early stuff, it was all those amps were you know, tube amplification was really invented in like the 30s and 40s, and those tubes really are amplifiers. You know, they're amplification tubes. They're amazing, and they're I mean, we can talk more about the detail of that. But those tubes are the amplifiers. Every single tube gain stage. You know, if you watch it on an oscilloscope, you go from like the scope is like the sine wave is this big. If you watch the signal before the tube, and then right after the tube, you watch the signal. It goes from this big to like this big. So you have to change your oscilloscope and bring the signal back down to see it again because it slammed it up. So, I mean, essentially what's happening in those tubes is, you know, with all those tube pins in a tube socket, you know, on a 12AX7, you've got a plate, a grid, and a cathode. So that plate's always going to hold the voltage. So it was such a confusing thing to me in the beginning. Like, how do you?
I think everyone is just like, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, but
how do you mix? How do you mix high voltage and a guitar signal? And they're mixing inside of that tube. So that plate, like, there's two triodes. A dual triode is like a 12AX7. So there's two independent sides in there. They share a heater. You know, it says, you know, heaters. your filaments,
Yeah.
which keep the tubes warm, and keep it from shocking the high voltage into it's part of the system. But the heaters are shared there, but there's 2 plate grid and cathodes, and there's always signal into the grid and out of the plate. So it goes into the grid. So that little pin 1 is always a plate. Pin 2 is always the grid. So when you send your little signal in there, your little 1 volt signal from your guitar into that grid, it hits that plate. And that plate is holding voltage at all times. So you can set the voltage on that plate to anything you want to. And all amps have different levels of what their voltage is. But you send that signal, any signal, you basically connect your input jack to that little grid. And when it hits that plate, it amplifies it. So it's like, bam, all of a sudden it's louder. And you send it through 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 gain stages, because each dual triode has 2 gain stages. It's like, oh, I can utilize these any way I want to. Okay, there's some power.
Yeah.
So it amplifies it each time. But, it was really always just enlightening to me once I started to learn how you can combine the musical aspect of it and the signal with the high voltage aspect of it. So, and that all happens inside of a vacuum tube.
That's insane. And dude, I mean, that's crazy. So it's like, I mean, because like for me personally, like, it's like, it's always just like, I mean, like, does the tube really matter? Like, should I just buy these cheap tubes or whatever, or versus these like, ruby or what, you know what I mean? It's like,
or the really expensive gold plated pins.
Yeah. Because
recreations of stuff. And
like, it's just, it's, because I think as a general thing, like I think most guitar players or musicians, like bass players or whatever, it's like we've all come, like the census is like, yeah, tube amps are better than like a solid state amp or whatever modeling amps now and stuff like that. Because it is true, man. I mean, it's like, like I have that neural DSP thing out there, and it's mostly for like, because I have a general, like, from everything from like metal to like someone who plays blues to jazz or whatever. And it's just, it's a convenient thing when this is like,
it's got like dozens of voices.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, let's just, like, I think this is what like this guy's kind of going for. So, but anytime I hear that versus like a tube amp, that's like, man,
another world.
It is, man. It's just like, even like to hear you guys play, like next door, I'm like, dude, that sounds so fucking good, man,
Crazy.
And it's like, it is insane to think that however old this technology is, it's like, hasn't really changed much.
It hasn't.
And it's like, for me, I'm at awe as like, as a player, as a builder, as an enthusiast, that how the fuck did these people get it right?
Right. Same thing you were saying earlier with like Leo Fender and the guitars and the early Gibson guitars and some of that early stuff. They haven't changed hardly at all.
No.
It's crazy.
And it's just like, that's where like I feel like I become like a little conspiratorial. It's just like, dude, these guys like what? How the fuck? Like doing the 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s?
Right. So David Riddle told me, you got to study these books. And he gave me like the Radio Engineer's Handbook and the RCA Tube Handbook or whatever. There's only a handful of these, 4 or 5 of these classic books. And they basically lay out at that time, these books were written in 1940, 1950, and they lay out like some of the most basic tube amp topology. And it's like, this is how you create a gain stage. This is how you create a basic, EQ, RC circuit, resistor and capacitor circuit that will set your basically your frequency response where you want your cutoff to be or whatever. So it explains a lot of that from way back then. And a lot of the technology is still kind of the same. So I started reading that stuff going, wow, here's these diagrams of just like a simple, gain stage, power tubes, preamp tubes, one or both connected, basic EQ circuits. And it was like, okay, like I get this. And this is what all these other amps are built on, all the Fender amps and all this stuff. It was all built on this basic kind of technology that they just tweaked a little bit. and it was all there. So I kind of figured, all right, I should stick with that because that's what I love, and that's what was always the most inspiring stuff to me and to most folks who came up through that era and still listen to that music that was all recorded from the 40s to even to present day. So it was like, let's stay with that. Even most of my test equipment, like the stuff that we have here that I brought in for show and tell.
Yeah.
The show and tell stuff. It's like these are from 1950, and there's some of the tools that were made then to control this technology, and they're still really relevant.
Yeah. So let's get geeky, man. Let's fucking dive in. Let's get some.
All right.
Let's get really geeky.
All right.
What the fuck is this shit? You were trying to explain it to me earlier when we were outside.
All right.
But so it's like
these are some of the tools in my arsenal, and honestly, most people never have ever even seen or conceived of anything.
This thing looks like a bomb for people that are can't watch it.
Right. Can you see this?
Looks like a military bomb thing from like World War II. What is this? What is this thing?
So this is called a decade substitution box.
Wow.
So a decade substitution box basically allows you to substitute a component within a circuit and choose any value you choose, right? So this is a resistance substitution box. There's also capacitance substitution boxes. So amps are filled with resistors and capacitors and other stuff, but some of the main components that we use that'll shape the tone of an amp and the way an amp feels and sounds and moves are resistors and capacitors. I know you took some questions before today.
Yeah.
So some of the questions are like, what is ohms?
Yeah.
What is impedance? What is resistance? And stuff like that. So basically, I don't know how clear, we can show this, but so this box is full of resistors that will all stack. So I can basically create any amount of resistance that I want to. So you start at the bottom here. Can you see that?
And then I'll take a picture of it, and then maybe we can like post it while we're talking about it.
Right.
So
it's 1 ohm.
Yeah.
So this dial will move me in single ohms. So if I want to put 1 ohm of resistance up to 10 ohms of resistance, these are all why it's called a decade substitution. It's because it all moves in like increments of 1 or 10.
Okay.
So if I want to put 10 ohms on something, I'll just dial that over, and now I've got 10 ohms. But how it's going to work is, let's say I open this amp up and put it on my bench. And a good example, something that's really effective, is like the plate voltage. So like the plate I was talking about earlier is the thing that like your circuit in your wall. You got 120 volts that just sits there, probably more like 118.
Yeah.
So if you plug something in, all of a sudden it's going to like activate that voltage. It's going to draw current, and it's going to utilize that voltage. So those plates in your tubes, that's all connected to your wall because it's got to be plugged in. It goes through your power transformer and gets converted from AC volts, 117, steps it way up. So those power transformers, quick amp lesson, just through the power section. Yeah. So when you plug in your amplifier, it goes in and it goes to your power transformer, and that power transformer steps it up to basically usually two high voltage taps, the HV high voltage taps, and those can be anywhere from 200 to 400 volts each on average. So now you've got 800 volts. It's enough to kill you. If you're touching the ground, like your chassis, and you touch one of those on accident, it'll go straight through you because it's looking for ground. Yeah. And it'll stop your heart like that. Yeah. It's like, they always say, be careful in tube amps. Yeah. Because it's that high voltage. That's AC voltage. And then it goes to a rectifier. And the job of the rectifier in a tube amp is basically to flip that voltage from AC voltage in your house, etc. To DC voltage. So the rectifier just flips it to DC voltage. Now you've got DC voltage into your B plus line. And your B plus line is what feeds all of the voltage sections in your amp. And then you control it throughout the amp with resistance. So now you're feeding those plates in all of those tubes with voltage. So bring in the substitution box. If I want to alter the voltage into any of those plates, which is higher voltage, lower voltage, or whatever, within spec, because every tube has a spec sheet. So you don't want to like overfeed a tube because you'll burn it up in no time or whatever. So let's say we're running to the first preamp tube. A really traditional value in a tube amp was like 100K. So 100K is 100,000 ohms of resistance. You know, common term, 100K, 47K, 220K. It's 100,000 ohms of resistance. So it's going to go from what you're feeding into that section, it's going to drop the voltage. It's a voltage drop. But let's say I'm wanting to emulate, let's say, Ken Fisher, who's a train wreck.
Yeah.
Some of the most famous collectible tube amps ever. So he had a thing where he would like keep the plate voltages in a lot of cases under 400 volts. Okay. So a lot of tube amps run it higher than that. The Crazy Horse runs at like 440 volts on power tube plates. So 440 volts per plate, it's a lot of voltage. But let's say I want to go Ken Fisher, which I've done on my Hawk, working with some folks out there who knew Ken Fisher, who are like, hey man, let's try this on my Hawk amp or whatever. So we've been manipulating voltages. You know, we've been manipulating voltages for years.
Yeah.
You know, so to be able to manipulate a voltage and then listen to it is really powerful. You know, because in a chat room or a forum or on a book or on paper or with an equation, you know, there's a lot of equations on how to make stuff work right. That's one thing. But to be sitting here with a guitar in your hand and have this thing hooked up where that 100K resistor might go. So now you've got two leads. I'm going to hook this up and take that 100K resistor out. So now this becomes that 100K resistor. So let's say I want to go, man, I want to max that tube out at like 400 volts. So I might lower the resistance to like this 10. So this is 10K per click. Drop it down to 10K. So I might have another meter connected to that showing what the voltage actually is on that tube. So I might drop it to 10 or let's go to 20K so we don't burn the tube instantly.
So this is essentially like just so you don't actually have to do it on the amp itself, and you can like try it and hear how.
Early on, before I knew about this stuff, I would like solder Marshall did a 220, so I'd solder it out, or you know, you'd end up with a mess of a circuit, which a lot of my early amps are a mess inside because I was doing them by hand. But it's impossible because you also, by the time you turn the amp off, drain the cap so you don't kill yourself, change the resistor, turn it back on, and go wah, 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 at full volume or whatever. Does this sound any different? Does it sound any different? I don't fucking know.
You're
fried. You've been cranking this amp for 3 hours. You don't know. You really don't know. It's the same thing with the switching system I made with Dave Riddle, Big Brain Dave. A switching system so you can switch multiple speakers across instantly. So we can take a head and run it to like multiple speaker cabinets and listen across instantly. Without the instant listening, you're never going to know what that really compares at. You know what I mean? So this is instant. So this is on the bench, and I'll go, all right, we're at 20K. Playing it. Wow, that's hot. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's go to 30K. It's fucking crazy. Keep going. Shit, we're 70K. We're at 80K. We're at 100K. That's what the stock value was for a Fender Deluxe. 100K. That sounds pretty good. Well, let's drop the voltage even more. I'm going to go to 100K, 200K. Okay. I'm going to drop this one out. So that one comes out now back to 0. So now we're at 200K. We're dropping the voltage. Now the voltage is coming down. Is that going to make the amp more distorted or less distorted? Well, let's go to 300K. Now we got less. Now we're on like 200 volts on the plate. Is that going to make the amp more distorted or less distorted?
Cool.
Right? So now you're playing, you're going, wow, all of a sudden it's totally different. And I'm not going to tell you the answer. Is it more distorted or less distorted? I mean, there's a whole, rat's nest of what goes on in an amp to make it more distorted or less distorted, which is all interrelated. But this tool, it gives me the ability to be able to literally have a live amp circuit on my bench and a guitar in my hand and be able to manipulate,
dial it in,
every value in there that can control. And if I have multiples of these, same thing. This is the same thing.
So that's the same thing, just like a different.
Yes. If you look at these knobs, this says 100 ohms. This says times 1K ohms. This is times 10K ohms. That says times 100K ohms. This is 1 meg ohms. So I can actually throw up 1 meg, 2 meg, 3, 10 meg ohms in one twist of a knob. Massive. 10 megs is huge amount of resistance. That's almost like a dead short.
So how long was it before you fucking discovered these things? So you were like, dude.
Dave Riddle, he showed them to me. He had these things in his shop, and we'd go on eBay, and he said, just buy a couple. They're $100 each. You're like, okay, let's order a couple. So I'd order these, or I'd find them at swap meets or estate sales or whatever, and I'd grab them because I knew what they were.
Yeah.
And 99% of people walk into a garage sale, see this sitting on a dusty shelf. You know, they're gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?"
Yeah.
Give me that thing. How much? $5. Okay, great. I'll take them all.
Yeah.
You know. And then same thing with capacitors. So capacitors, you know, greatly vary the low end level in an amp, and you know, besides doing what they do, which is usually, you know, voltage block, DC blocking, so it doesn't let the voltage through, it lets the signal through. There's certain things, you know, that capacitors, they have a job. Besides, you know, all the other stuff of like, what do they sound like? What's a mustard mullard sound like? What's a bumblebee sound like? What's an orange drop sound like? You know, tubes you were talking about, you know, those all are really, really involved conversations. But these tools, they're so powerful. And if, you know, what I've been able to do with them is been able to take an amp and tailor it like a fine suit, you know, which is partly why, you know, people say, well, your amps, I've read they're always different. And in a lot of cases, a lot of my amps are really different, you know, because I'm such a gearhead and I'm such a tone freak and I'm so into learning. I'm such a sponge that it's like, oh, well, what happens if we change all the plate resistors to 220 in this amp? That sounds pretty damn good. And it's closer to a Marshall circuit. Fuck it. Let it go. It sounds great. Nobody would ever know that their Crazy Horse amp is closer to a Marshall than it is the Fender like tweed style circuit or whatever, because I'm tweaking stuff all the time and it's part of the voicing process. So when I voice an amp, when it's done, it's like it gets on my bench and nobody, you know, I mean, there's a lot of companies out there, a lot of hype, Mark Sampson, Matchless and all that, and it's like I'm the only person that finishes these amps. Only person. It's like when it's on my bench and I sit there, and sometimes it takes me 20 minutes and sometimes it takes me 20 days. You know, it's like.
And I can attest to that. Dude, it's rad. So, all right, let's dig into your amps, because aside from like the visual like aspect of them, that they're so fucking badass. Like, first of all, what makes them special? Because I don't think a lot of people know about like the reclaimed wood and like the even like the new old parts like that you use and stuff like that. So like, because I didn't even know that. Like I said, I discovered you on Instagram and things like that, and like when I met you and like, you were talking about the amp, it's like, holy fuck, you're talking about like this old wood that fucking was from this and blah blah. I'm like, so so like how'd you first of all, cloth, like the grill cloth, like how'd you come up with that?
You know, the funny thing is, and I'm going to say funny, or strange. The strange thing is, the first amp that I actually made, I just had some old wood around. So I was like, you know, it makes sense. Like the old tweed amps, which I was really inspired by. I was really inspired by tweed era Fender and Gibson. But those Fender amps and most of the Gibson, you know, 40s, 50s. The cabinets were made out of solid pine. So that would have been solid pine that was probably cut in turn of the century, 20s, 30s, and then used in the 40s, 50s. So I was like, well, if I'm gonna make an amp, it seems like it would make sense if I want it to sound like an amp from that era. I would use wood from that era, and it seemed pretty logical. So I cut up some old pine, you know, and I found some colorful grill cloth that just seemed to make sense. Also partially inspired by the earliest Fender amps, the Woodies. Most people don't even know about the Woodies.
I don't know about the Woodies.
The Fender Woodies. They were wood cabinets with a wood handle and a colorful grill cloth. They had like blue and red grill cloths with a chrome thing down the front. It was like a V front. And they had like a chrome thing to protect the speaker. Right? I mean, like 1948 Fender Woody. And it was kind of similar to this. I mean, this is obviously kind of a whole nother level in its own way, but it was a wood cabinet with a colorful cloth. So for some reason, that was just like, that was my lens. Like I just was so obsessed with the 40s
Yeah.
and the 50s of that era. So the very first cabinets I made, they looked sort of like this,
Mhm.
you know, and that was just the way they came out.
Yeah.
It wasn't really highly premeditated.
Yeah,
It was just
yeah,
kind of like, I've got this old wood, it
Mhm.
makes sense, and it sounded great, and it was like, wow, and it looked great. But then what I realized
Mhm.
after doing a few dozen of
Mhm.
them was it was like, wow, these woods actually all sound different, because getting old vintage
Mhm.
wood was like, oh, this is oak, this is ash, this is maple, this is pine, this is
Mhm.
redwood. They're
Mhm.
all different. They all have different tonal
Mhm.
characteristics, just like the top of an acoustic guitar or the
Mhm.
body of an acoustic guitar. Or an electric guitar, not as much, but an acoustic guitar, the entire sound is freaking body and the
Yeah.
soundboard.
Yeah.
So a lot of guitars, they've got very specific wood types to get that specific
Yeah.
tone.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Which now building more guitars is kind of
Yeah.
even more twisted my
Yeah.
head towards tone woods.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, I realized as the amps got louder,
Mhm.
it's, if you put your hand on an amp or on a speaker when it's
Mhm.
loud, so much vibration.
Mhm.
It's really
Mhm.
moving hard, man. It'll like move your hand.
Yeah.
So as that starts to resonate and it gets really loud, that cabinet starts to resonate.
Uh-huh.
And that cabinet creates tone.
Yeah.
It's a tone generator.
Yeah.
So there's another sort of X factor in the Black Volt amps.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, the redwood, which this is solid redwood,
Mhm.
which is gorgeous. It's like white and red.
Mhm.
And the redwood tends to have like this really mystical, magical character of like holding the bottom in a real warm, soft
Mhm.
way, a little compression on the top without being too hard.
Mhm.
Like an oak or an ash or a
Mhm.
maple would be really hard and keep the top really
Mhm.
tight, more for like a
Mhm.
traditional telly plate or steel or something. It's going to really hold it. This is like this gorgeous, without being muted.
Uh-huh.
It's a really gorgeous kind of tone wood.
Yeah.
So redwood's like amazing. So I started to learn as we started to do it
Mhm.
how the wood really affected the tone,
Mhm.
And then the grill cloths, talking about the grill cloths, sure, a lot of the reason that people like notice Black Volt is because it's so unique. But they don't realize that, part of the character is like the grill cloth. If you look at this grill cloth, it's it's got about 20 holes in it.
Mhm.
So I grilled a screen behind this.
Yeah.
So there's actually like a plastic screen like you put on your window,
Uh-huh.
glued to this grill cloth, and these are all holes cut into this to allow more high-end frequency through it.
Yeah.
So I actually tune the front end of the amp.
Mhm.
So if you compare it to like a vintage, let's say a 1959 narrow panel Tweed Deluxe 5E3, it's going to have, if it's original or fairly original, the speaker, the paper is going to be soft. It's going to be kind of deadened. It's going to break up early. It's got an old vibe to it. The more cloth I leave on the front of it, the more it's going to deaden the front end of the amp. Granted, the back end's going to throw sound because it's an open back cavity.
Yeah.
But the front end, I can tune it. So a good example is this amp right here. It's 100% flame maple. So it's solid 1-inch thick flame maple, which is insane. It belongs to Joshua Ray Gooch. So you know Josh Gooch.
Yes.
You guys have Josh over here. You work on his
Yeah.
you work on his guitars. So this is Josh's amp. He's out with Shania right now doing their Vegas stint. But because Josh is such a gearhead, he's such a tone freak. We're always manipulating stuff and changing tubes, and we put these huge recreations of like 6L6. Like the old RCA 6L6s are like this big, and they're 6Ls. We put them in his amp, and we're always tweaking his amp. But one of the things we did recently was I added 1, 2, 3 holes in the front of it.
1, 2, 3 holes in the front.
Because he felt like I feel like the front of it's a little bit muted. Because I get behind it and it's really like attacky and stuff. But the front of it, so he originally I had put 4 in it. So we just added, I think it was at least 3 holes. So just to add a little bit of top end to it, and let a little more air and a little more high end frequency come through it. I just like punched out some holes. So people don't even realize it, but some of these cloths have to be heavily manipulated to be able to get it to sound natural or to make it sound more vintage by letting a little less high frequency through. And people don't always realize, like this amp. I recently backlined some Los Lobos shows and did like a Cinco de Mayo show with them. And this amp this amp basically was one of the amps. And Louis, one of their guitar players, had this and another crazy horse side by side. So he had two crazy horses, and he was saying, he was like, man, he was like, I don't know what it is. It's like undescribable. But he goes, the high end is like percussive and it's round and it's not bitey and it's not sharp. And he was just raving about how much he enjoyed playing the amps, you know, and there's something about that high frequency that's kind of undescribable, especially in a newer, new amp. And it's got this like lessened attack, and so many amps, you know, so many amps these days. I mean, forever, they have so much high end, so much high frequency that it can be repelling. And if you get in front of a stage, a lot of times, even some vintage amps that people don't treat them right, but mostly new amps and, you know, reissue amps and stuff, they repel people, especially in smaller venues. You go to clubs and stuff. It's like I've seen it so many times when we bring amps and we work with folks, and you see certain amps that are just like, and they put them in the sound system, dude, and it's just like, it just turns to white noise to some extent. And this stays really musical, and it kind of tops the, controls the top a little bit. So there's just like so many little elements that you know, the sum of its parts end up contributing to the entire finished amp, you know. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of become a whole, you know, black magic of of creating this specific sound. You know? And I mean, I have like certain guys that own my amps, whether it's a Brooklyn Special, the big 50, 60, 70 watt head, or a combo, and they own some of the best gear in the world. They own train wrecks and they own Dumbles, and they'll literally say to me, like, I end up playing your amp almost all of the time because it's so musical, and it's just got that magic thing that's really musical. And these are guys who know, whether producers or collectors or studio owners, that just, you know, just sing the praises of these amps, which is amazing to me. Really, to me, it's like the ultimate payoff is like, wow, people really connect with this. And people really hear what I've been hearing for all these years, trying to develop this unique sound within an already well-worn pathway.
How'd you come up with the name?
You know, originally I was,
because I love it, dude. It's like Black Volt. I was just like,
it just came to me. It came to me, but originally the name that came to me, like the Mars Volta, it was Black Volta.
Okay, cool.
It was the Black Volta. And a friend of mine, who you probably all know, his name's Richard Edson.
Okay.
He's an actor, and he was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Do the Right Thing with John Turturro. He's got the smashed nose. I'm a professional. He's an actor. He's a great actor, character actor. He was in Jim Jarmusch films and stuff. He's great, you know, Strange in Paradise. Super cool guy, super good friend of mine. And we've been friends for many years. He was over at the house one day, and we played together in bands and recording, and he's a great drummer, and he's a really good bass player too. And super interesting and interested guy. He's always interested in things and loves to have conversations in detail, like we're doing right now. He loves to have detailed conversations about stuff. And I had like kind of showed him the idea, and I was doing my thing, and he just said, he was like, why Black Volta? He's like, what's the Volta, you know? He goes, why don't you just call it Black Volt and remove the dash? Because it was Black Dash Volta, the Black Volt. And he was like, you know, and I was like, and it just made perfect sense. And I didn't even question it. So I have to give Richard Edson some credit.
Okay, cool. Well, shout out to Richard, man.
Shout out to Edson, who's great. And he's a great photographer and filmmaker and all of that. Again, really interesting guy. And he just literally just tweaked it for me. And I was like, sure, okay.
That's so
And it went from the Black Volta to Black Volt Amplification.
Dude, fucking rad, man. That's crazy. That's so fun. I mean, it's always interesting how like people, you know, like name their companies or whatnot. But that's a question that I always wondered, that I always wanted to ask you. So
yeah, I think a big part of the entire inspiration that I've gotten is from my father, who passed away right about the time I created this whole thing. My dad basically passed away December, like Christmas Eve, 2013. So when he passed from lung cancer, which was just kind of crazy and obviously hard for anyone to deal with, He passed away, but he was an engineer and he worked in electronics and GE, and he was in the Army, GTE phone company. And he retired, and then Sprint hired him back on for like fiber optics communications and doing a whole fiber optics thing. So he was like always a engineer of sorts. So I absorbed a lot from him, but when he passed, it was like all of a sudden, I kind of crashed for a couple months where I just didn't know what to do. It really hit me hard. And it kind of made me realize, like, okay, I don't have forever. When you see someone close to you, they're gone like that. It was like, all right, so it all kind of hit me, and I was inspired, and I feel like a lot of inspiration came through him in some way from the other side. It was like Dad really helped inspire a lot of stuff and helped define a lot of stuff without me really thinking too much about it. Maybe it's just my, perception. Or
I mean, dude, you and Tanya, like, I feel like you guys are very spiritual, and I feel like, I mean, that, like, in a cheesy, like, type of way, but it's like very organic, and like, yeah, I mean, I love it, man. Like,
Thanks,
I said,
man.
it's like, I feel like you found a cool way, like, I mean, serendipity in the sense. So it's like, what better time to be, using like reclaimed wood and upcycling
Right.
than now,
Yeah, and that's
because
like a whole nother.
it is,
It's a whole nother
it's
2-hour
like,
podcast.
yeah, no, I mean, it really is, but it's like, because you're doing amps,
Oh,
and then now
God.
you're doing guitars, and dude, I remember, because I had just moved in, and I think you mentioned at one point, it's like, yeah, I think I'm gonna do like some like guitars from scratch. I was just like, fuck, man, all right,
Good
whatever,
luck.
yeah, literally, it's like, what was that saying that your buddy said?
There's always room for one more on the ship of fools.
Dude, that is so great. That is so
To
fucking great,
Aspen.
dude. To Aspen, dude, that is a great saying, man. And I was just like, yeah, sure, man. Do your fucking thing, man. Whatever, And I remember you showed me the first thing that you did, and I was just like, oh, like the nut and the fretwork here and there, whatever. And I mean, dude, again, I mean, like, even like during this podcast, now I've understood why you'll always succeed, because of who you are, and how you just like,
man.
dude, fuck it, you get it. It's like, oh, it's a process, whatever, cool. Like, I might not get it on the first one, but
Work through it.
yeah, you're gonna work through it. And it's like, dude, it's insane to see the first product that you showed me to what you have now, to now that you have like a dedicated space for just guitar stuff, and you have Olivier with you and all this stuff, and it's like the cases that you have, dude, it's like all within a year, and I've been like, fuck, dude, like,
crazy.
But it's awesome, it's encouraging, it's inspiring for people to just understand, like, look, like,
you can do this.
You can, like, nobody grew up on third base. I mean, it's like, I know that people want to believe that, but like, well, I mean, when it comes to like building things and stuff like that, it's just
it
like,
takes time.
it takes a lot. It takes a lot of time and a lot
Patience,
of projects, and it's just, but it's a matter of just
and a lot
starting.
of failing. Yeah,
that's it, man.
That's one of the things I think people have to realize, is that you have to embrace the failure.
You hear that, Chris?
You got to embrace the failure, because if you realize that failure is part of the journey to creating something, then you'll be okay with it. It's like, well, this one wasn't great, but let's do another one. It'll be better. And so long as you realize that path might be a long path, you're not just like, hey, I'm going to make the greatest guitar. I'm going to CNC it all and buy all this machinery, and it's going to be the best guitar in the first 2 guitars I make, or the first, it's like, you got to realize. I mean, that's one thing that I have realized with the Ship of Fools comment years later. It's like, there are so many people trying to do what we do, build guitars and build amps and all that. And there's a lot of stuff out there. And there's a lot of good stuff out there, but it's a journey of stick-to-itness.
Yeah.
You got to stick to it, and you got to be dedicated, and you want to do it. And it's not really about the money. I mean, hopefully if you do what you love and you do it well, the money will come. But you really got to do it because you love it. And for me, honestly, and I said this to you the other day, because you were like, what's going on with the guitars? And I was like, man, we're like back ordered like 10 guitars. It's insane,
Mm-hmm.
which, is nothing for, Martin.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of these companies, PRS,
Yeah.
I mean, they have city blocks
Yeah.
that they produce
yeah.
guitars out of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane. Martin, Taylor, PRS,
Fender,
Gibson,
like,
they're huge. They're massive production facilities. So for me to have 10 guitar orders, for me, is like earth-shattering.
Yeah, because it is, though. It's like, it is.
But what I said to you was, the real payoff for me is the fact that the people who have been getting these guitars have actually been saying, oh my God, like Josh Gooch just recently got a guitar that we did for him. He said, this is like the best teletone I've ever gotten. And for me, that's hugest compliment ever.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God. And he's playing it live on stage and he's starting to use it in the studio. And, it's like, for people to love him, one guy who's, I won't say his name because he's like a really big deal and he's got an amazing studio and he bought one. He's like, this is amazing. It's amazing. Everyone who plays it loves it. He just bought 2 more guitars and he's just like, dude, these guitars are insane. They feel good. They sound good. They record well. It's just like for someone to come back and be like, okay, I've tried it. Maybe I took a chance on you, Gio, because I trust you and I like you and I like your amps. But for people to come back is like the hugest compliment.
Oh, dude, I mean, what else do you want, And it's like, and you've adopted the same, like, style and everything with the guitars. Because again, it's like when you told me, I was like, oh, I'm going to build some tellies and stuff like that. It's like, you and everybody else, And then you showed me and I was just like, dude, it's really hard to reinvent the wheel. You know what I mean? It's like, it's impossible.
Right.
And it's just like, but also understanding, oh, you're not trying to do that. You're just, it's like adding your flavor to this. It's your version of whatever you're trying to, like the telly. And it is so fucking badass, man. It's like,
thanks, man.
And I mean, dude, it's just like, I mean, as people know, I mean, people that follow me, it's like, dude, I'm a fucking dick to shitty like, dude, I hate when whatever, man. I don't have a problem with calling people out. And it's like, dude, I know we're friends, but like, I mean it, man. It's like, it's pretty fucking cool that you've found your own voice.
Yeah.
In this building thing, man. And it's really fucking hard, man.
That's the key, is the voice.
And it's like, so he's using reclaimed wood, same thing.
Right. So that's a maple top and a pine body. You can see the separation.
Yeah, and it's like,
it's an interesting combination of woods.
Dude,
not a ton of people use pine, although a lot of the early tellies were pine.
Yeah.
There's a new book that was released, which you guys should all check out. It's called The Pinecaster. It's like 5 volumes and videos, and it's the history of the early Telecasters. It's called The Pinecaster. But a lot of those early ones were pine. So I use a lot of pine because it's more available. But using reclaimed wood, this maple top is about at least 100 years old, and it's sustainable.
Yeah.
So there's a whole world of information within wood curing, new wood versus old wood, instruments with old wood, old instruments, all that. But I mean, kind of in a nutshell, to be able to use old woods, it's sustainable, and we're not contributing to the clear cutting of forests that are out there that massive companies are like every day. And some of them, like Taylor, has a really cool little wing of their company where they're using like urban salvage or something. I forget what they call it, but like trees that fall down in neighborhoods, they put them somewhere and they're reusing like local trees to make into guitars, which is cool. But the massive part of their production, and most big producers, they harvest trees, they cut them, they dry them, they put them in ovens, and then in some cases, the more expensive guitars get the seasoning, so they put them in like further, like a torrefied wood and all that.
Dude, trust me, I
they can cut a tree, and process it and build it in a matter of like 3 or 4 months, which is ridiculous. Because a lot of our guitars, the wood, by the time we get them and cut them, the wood's already, the tree was 200 or 300 years old. It had been cut 100 years ago. It was on the side of a barn. Grab that body right there. This is like old barn siding. So this one's redwood body. It's a redwood body, which still has the paint on it. One piece solid slab of redwood, probably Pacific Northwest. And then this is an ash top. There's the tone. And then I filled the holes with epoxy and old coffee grounds. So that's coffee grounds and epoxy. But it's also partially, is interesting is I'm partially inspired by. I'm very inspired by Les Pauls.
Yeah.
Because Les Pauls are one of the greatest guitars ever.
Yeah.
So Les Paul and Telecaster. So Les Paul's always had a maple top and a mahogany body for the most part. So I'm always interested in putting a harder wood on top, whether I hollow out the bottom or not, and then a softer wood on the bottom of mahogany or pine or redwood. So they're combinations of wood, and that top wood traditionally gave those guitars a bit more of an attack. So but then seeing the patina on this wood, the way those old saws, a lot of times they had the saws on site, and they were building like a tobacco curing barn or hay barns, old barns that are still standing in some cases or just rotting. I get access to a lot of that old wood through certain salvage yards, and basically completely reshape it and reuse it. But it's so hard and it's so old, it's never going to curve. And especially for necks, we haven't done a lot of necks out of old wood. We're starting to do more because I've had to experiment with it. But necks are like amazing. When you get an old piece of hickory, like a baseball bat, like Louisville Sluggers, those were hickory. And maple and traditional neck materials, taking an old fence post that's 100, 200 years old and slicing it, and it doesn't twist, it doesn't warp, it doesn't bend. And you look down the line, it's straight as an arrow. It's just like,
dude. I mean,
crazy.
like I said, man, it's like, dude, you found a voice, man, and that's really hard. It's like, as any builder out there knows, man, it's like, it's tough, man, and you're doing it, man, and you just, again, it just goes to show to your stubbornness, your tenacity, and your just willingness to experiment and try new things, man.
Yeah,
it's
experimenting is the key. And I think for anyone who's watching, who's doing something or trying to do something, I think one of the keys is just finding your own voice in it.
But how do you, and that's the thing. It's just like, and I think that's the thing. It's
digging
like
deep, using your intuition, just seeing what inspires you.
Yeah.
Because honestly, over the years, I've had a lot of people try to knock off my aesthetic. And in some cases, we reach out or we have someone else, reach out to people and say, hey, don't do that. You're going to get a lot further in your career if you do something unique because we're already doing this.
Yeah.
And in most cases, people, respond and they kind of change their course a little bit. But I think, again, for anybody who's out there who's wanting to do something unique, it's like you just have to find your own voice within it, find your own shapes, find your own materials, find your own electronics combinations, find your own thing to create your own voice. Because ultimately, if you could hang in there, talking about longevity, if you can hang in there, it takes people years to absorb what you do and appreciate what you do and stuff like that. So it's like, if you can find your own voice and manage to survive, people will come around, people will support you and people will buy your stuff,
Dude, that is fucking rad. And I think we should move on to the segment that everybody seems to love, which is the questions. So I think I picked.
They've all tuned out at this point.
No way, dude. It's like, dude, it's fucking. Even me, dude. I feel like I've learned so much about.
Oh man.
And I'm sure people will have questions, and like, dude, whatever, we'll figure it out and stuff like that. But so I asked y'all for like questions. I picked 7, maybe 8, because I'm gonna ask one.
Wow.
Like my questions out of like all the like somebody asked, is he single? My friend,
wow.
He is not. He's married to a beautiful lady who's amazing. But anyways, so these are the questions that I feel I don't know. I think they're relevant to, I feel like, what a lot of people probably feel. Number one, basic tools to get started and prepare, and it's like a double question, and good resources where people can kind of learn more about it. So, like, if someone's like I was telling you earlier, it's like I was kind of like, oh, maybe I should learn how to do amp repair and just another revenue,
Right.
and then quickly realizing, yeah, I don't want to fucking die. Fuck this shit. Like, maybe I'll just stick to my shit. But
I guess one of the big things is like a really good multimeter.
Okay.
And learn how to use it.
Okay.
Because I had a multimeter and I had a cheap one for a while and didn't know all the uses on it.
Yeah.
So I think anybody who wants to do anything amp related or guitar related.
Yeah.
I think you need to get a multimeter. This is a Fluke 117. Probably cost $200 to buy new. So not cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, I think when I bought it a few years ago, I was like, oh, that's kind of an investment. There are ones that are more expensive. There's ones that are less expensive. But probably most important, it's got resistance, it's got impedance, it's got continuity, continuity, which is like, just to see if like any line connects. Like, oh, is my ground work?
Yeah.
I can go from this point to the ground in the chassis and make sure my grounds are good.
It's always good. Yeah.
Continuity is like, I use this, honestly, I probably use continuity on my meter, which is just a little speaker sort of thing. Yeah. Almost all the time because it just tells me, is this connected? Is this connected? Is this ground? Is this ground? Is this ground? Is this ground? Super simple, but it lets me know in an instant, if stuff is connected or grounded or whatever. Also impedance checking, the impedance of stuff or resistance of like a resistor of any sort. Test it. It'll test diodes. Also super important is it'll test capacitance. Some meters don't test capacitors. So being able to hook that thing up and test capacitance with a switch here. It's got another like yellow switch, which changes to the secondary dial. You can actually test, if capacitors work. It's not good for all capacitors. It's not good for electrolytics, really. There's a separate meter for that, for electrolytics, and also testing them in circuit, ESR meter and stuff like that. That's different. But to honestly, like, don't underestimate the power of a really good digital multimeter like a Fluke. Fluke's just some of the best. There's also old analog ones like the Simpsons that are good too. I learned on a Simpson. Dave made me. Dave Riddle was like, here, use this. You got to learn a Simpson analog meter. We had the old Simpson 280 or whatever the hell it was. And you literally see the dial move. Be like resistance. You'd have to set the range, like 1K to 10K, 10K to 100K. Okay, this is what... And it would like ramp up and you'd see it and you'd feel it move.
Yeah.
So even analog meters can be good, but you should just know your meter.
Know your meter, y'all. Know your meter.
Your DMM, digital multimeter, is
all right,
super
there you
helpful.
go.
Yeah.
All right. First amp you heard that became your kind of like holy grail that you were like, holy fuck.
Wow. I mean, there's definitely a few of them, but probably the really
first one. You were like,
the very first one. I mean, probably the first one was like a
Line 6 Spider 3.
Yeah, Line 6 modeler. Probably like a Tweed Deluxe.
Okay.
Tweed Deluxe. I mean, all the different Tweed Deluxe. There's multiple circuits that happen there. 5D3, 5E3, all that. I mean, they're one of the greatest amps, but they had like fatal flaws. I don't know if Fender. I don't know if Fender just didn't know what they were doing, or they were experimenting so much that they just, like the volume knob on a Tweed Deluxe. Once you get past like 2, it's like distortion, and it's more distortion all the way up. But it's 2 6V6s and 2 12AX7s. On the schematic, it's a 12AY7 in the first position. These amps are, they're based somewhat on a 5E3 circuit. They're not like totally groundbreaking. I'm not reinventing the wheel, but I've made a lot of changes from like a Tweed style, Deluxe style circuit that have taken it to a much more usable, much more dependable level. So the 5E3 was one. Probably the other amp that really changed my life was the Tweed Bassman. And the Tweed Bassman is probably one of the most landmark amps of the entire history of rock and roll music, because the Tweed Bassman, not the 40s ones. There was late 40s where it was 115. Once they got into the 50s and they created the 410 Bassman, that circuit had amazing clean tones, great clean tones, and then it had phenomenal distortions. Once you turned it up, it was like, it's insane. It's the heart of rock and roll.
Yeah.
I mean, the distortion was like that distortion in like 1953, 1955, 1959. It was amazing. They weren't made to distort, in the 50s and 60s. All they were trying to do was stamp out the distortion. Fender called them student amps and Princetons and Harvards and all that stuff. They were like, everyone was like, they're too distorted. People sold them in the 60s and 70s. They gave them away. They didn't want Tweed amps because Tweed amps distorted. But now, 60 years later, the distortion is what we all want. The character.
Saturation.
Yeah. The character of that distortion is what we all love. Even a champ amp. Eric Clapton's famous for having 2 champs in the studio recording Layla with it. So many classic tunes, Cocaine and all that stuff. Just like 2 Tweed amps, not turned up too loud, but having that finger dynamic where you can distort them. And so the Bassman had amazing clean tones. It was a bass amp, supposed to be a bass amp. Wouldn't really hold up for a bass.
Yeah.
But when you turned them up, it was amazing. And then Jim Marshall over in the UK heard some American bands playing the Bassman, and he heard these glorious distortions. He literally took that schematic. He took the Bassman schematic and he built his first Marshall amps. And he enclosed the speaker cabinet, powered it up, and put 4 12s in it. But the circuit, quite literally, you can look at the circuit, look at the schematic, and they're exactly the same.
That's wild.
They're exactly
that is insane.
The same.
God damn, dude.
It's like the circuit, it's got a presence. It's got, it's got volume. It's got the presence. It's got treble and bass. And it's got 4 inputs. It's the same damn thing.
That's insane.
And he just made it louder.
Yeah.
And, by the time Hendrix and The Who and, Jimmy Page got hold of it, it was just like, it was loud enough to fill a freaking stadium. 2 or 3 of those. But literally, Fender stumbled upon it. I mean, not stumbled, but
did it, and then somebody utilized it.
They changed it, they changed it, and they changed it, and they changed it, and they changed it, and they kept changing it. Through the 60s, blackface. Through the 70s, silverface. They just kept changing it, and they kept stamping out the distortion. That was their mission.
Yeah,
was to stamp out the distortion. The venues were getting bigger. They needed more volume, less distortion. So a lot of the reasons people don't like silverface stuff is because it distorts less.
Yeah,
and it's hard. It's brighter. It's harder.
Yeah, including me. Yeah, dude. Which is funny, man. It's insane. It's crazy to hear all this stuff.
Yeah,
like, whoa. Now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So that
man.
Tweed Bassman, and I had a Tweed Bassman until COVID, and during COVID, I had this weird epiphany where I was like, I got all these great amps. I had a Blackface Deluxe. I had a Deluxe Reverb. I had a Deluxe Non-Reverb. I had a Blackface, a Tweed Bassman. And I was like, I'm surrounded by amps. I build amps. I'm trying to make the best amps in the world. Why do I have all of these vintage amps around me that I never use anymore?
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they're great amps.
Yeah.
They're milestones in the process. But I sold almost all of it. I sold, 80% of my vintage collection I had laying around. And I just felt like I don't need them anymore. And it's interesting because I have what I call my mental tone Rolodex. So I have this Rolodex, back in the days when Rolodex existed.
Yeah.
You dial up
these kids are like, what the fuck is Rolodex?
So a Rolodex was like, flashback
a physical
to like 1980 or something.
Yeah.
Not that I ever used one.
Yeah.
But, you would dial it up and it would be like, okay, Luis, here's his phone number, here's his address, here's his business. All the basic specs were there for what you did. So for me, I feel like a mental tone Rolodex is like, I spent years buying and selling and playing and trying to understand all the classic vintage amps. And in doing that, if you've got like, let's say you own a classic MK2 or JMP or a Plexi or a Tweed Deluxe or whatever, if you've played it for a few years, it's like a pair of boots. It's like a classic pair. I wear these boots every day.
Yeah.
As soon as you take those boots off and put on a pair of snakeskin boots, they feel different, right? Snakeskin boots. They feel different.
Yeah.
They fit your foot different. They step different. The sole's different. It's all different once you get to know something. And that's what I spent years doing, was like developing my mental tone Rolodex of buying those amps. And if I couldn't afford to buy them, which in often cases I couldn't spend $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 on an amp, I would buy one and then resell it or sell something else to buy that one. I spent years like buying and learning and understanding, but knowing that clean, you plug a Strat into a Bassman, holy grail, best clean tone ever. Or a Tweed Deluxe, Tweed, the high-powered Tweed Twin, Tweed Twin.
Yeah.
Tweed Twin, phenomenal. So with like Whitey over there, like one of the things I'm trying to do with certain amps of mine is be able to get like that bite and that clean and that glass out of the amp. And then with Whitey, there's a gain knob. It just dials in Marshall. It's like, you want Fender? You got Fender. You got clean? You got it. You got overdrives, Fender overdrives? You got it. It's all Tweed style. You want Marshall? Just dial that knob.
Yeah.
That's a page out of Marshall.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
First time you were shocked?
Oh, God. I used to be fast and loose, man. Fast and loose. I got shocked all the time.
Did you?
When I would be testing an amp, and probably before I had these types of tools, I would be in there working on, I get shocked on filter caps, I get shocked. I thought I was bulletproof.
Yeah.
I wanted to be one with the amp. I think it was partially how I earned my way into building an amp, was absorbing the voltage.
Yeah. Literally.
So I don't endorse it.
Yeah.
I don't suggest it.
Don't do it, kids. But
because it can hurt you badly. But I have been shocked many times. I don't get shocked so much anymore. I'm more careful.
Feel that volt.
Feel the volt.
Amp mentor.
Amp mentor.
If you had to pick one.
I guess,
or just mentor in general, I guess, because everything you talk
my
about.
main mentor. And I talk about it a little bit on my website. I mentioned David Riddle, who's he's still alive. He's not like 80, but he's up there. He's older, and he's really smart. He's cut from a different cloth, from a different era. If he ever watches this, Dave, you're amazing.
I met him, amazing guy.
Yeah, you did. He came here,
just like literally. Encyclopedia.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you want to learn?
Yeah, and he's an open book.
He is. Amazing.
You get him started on something, and he will just teach you and tell you. And for most people, it goes right over their head because he's so advanced.
Me.
But he's that guy where if you want to dig in and learn from him, he's going to teach you. And I learned so much from Dave. And he still comes to the shop. I'll like bring him down for an entire week or something. And have him come help me build jigs for stuff, whatever. He's great.
The next question that I'm actually really interested in is your first build, your first amp that you were like, I think I did a thing. Or actually even better, because I feel like as a builder and as just like myself, like that you were comfortable enough to sell. To let go, you birthed it, and it's like I'm selling it, which means I'm comfortable behind it. Go on, baby.
Wow.
Get out.
Wow.
Get out and do your thing.
Wow, that's crazy. I never thought about that. I built a couple that were really bad. They were like humming and noisy because the ground scheme was wrong. I learned a lot about grounding over the following year or whatever. Grounding is super important. People don't even think about ground. People think of grounding as like a black hole. Yeah. Just ground it. And I was reading stuff on the internet going, star grounding is the thing, and everything goes to one ground, so there's no ground loops. It was bullshit. Yeah. And then I had like transformers in the wrong orientation. Transformers matter because they have like a RF field that throws a frequency out. So I had built a couple that were like noisy and big disappointment,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
And at that moment, you feel like you've completely failed.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, I just spent like 2 weeks building this thing and I just have to start over.
Mhm.
Just kind of throw it in the scrap bin.
Mhm. Mhm.
So there was a couple of those because I was trying to carve my own path out, not just like, let me just buy a kit
Mhm.
in a chassis that's already
Mhm.
all made and
Yeah.
drilled.
Mhm.
I literally, honestly, I mean, I seem insane, but dude, I literally went to like Industrial Metal Supply up in the valley in Burbank, bought some sheet metal,
Mhm.
went to a bending place down the
Mhm.
street on the same day,
Mhm.
had them bend the steel for me, and they just bent like a U-shaped chassis.
Mhm.
And we just like bent some basic chassis, and
Mhm.
I like went home and started drilling them out and cutting
Mhm.
them out with grinders and
Yeah.
stuff. I mean, I was just like I had such a fever
Mhm.
to build these amps and to start building in
Mhm. Mhm.
my own form factor that I
Yeah.
could fit into these old
Yeah.
cabinets I was making,
Yeah.
that they were like, and I still have a couple of them
Mhm.
here at the shop. Some of the earlier serial numbers I've sold for, like a lot of money,
Mhm.
surprisingly.
Mhm.
Um,
And I mean, you got some you got some serious clients, man.
yeah,
You know?
fortunate people care
Yeah,
and
man.
show interest and enjoy the stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of those early serial numbers and some of my early amps, I have sold. Some of my
Mhm.
I still have a couple of them. That one right there, that's Whitey #1. That was the first Whitey, and that's been on a ton of big albums,
Uh-huh.
huge albums, Muse and At the Drive-In and Biffy Clyro and a lot of different stuff. A dozen different albums
Okay.
that's been on.
Okay. All right.
That's the amp,
Yeah.
and I had sold it
Uh-huh.
and bought it back at some point.
You're like, "No. No, I want it
I had
back."
to pay for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I bought it back. But so yeah, so some of those early amps
Mhm.
were kind of just crazy, and I learned, wow, this stuff really matters,
Mhm.
and I learned the hard way,
Mhm.
But if I would have just bought a kit, you
Mhm.
see builders now who
Mhm.
build like amps that they buy a chromed out like tweed style
Mhm. Yeah.
deluxe chassis
Yeah.
or whatever. It's like that's cool, but it's nothing unique. Like,
Mhm.
is anyone really going to care at the end of the day if you're
Mhm.
rebuilding a
Yeah.
exact cop close to a copy of something,
Yeah.
So, so some of the early ones were, they looked like they were pulled out of a freaking barn and they were hand cut and gnarly,
Mhm.
you know.
Which is so cool, man. I mean, that it fucking adds to the story, you know? Dude, I mean, I love that shit.
I think I have one that's over there, literally at my shop right
Mhm.
now. It's a head.
Mhm.
There's a video of Ryan Richter,
Uh-huh.
who's a great musician, and he plays with a lot of bands and stuff, and he's a super cool guy, and
Mhm.
he works with Fretboard Journal doing like uh, is one of their contributing
Yeah.
writers, and he did some stuff early on with me, which was cool.
Mhm.
There's a video of him playing this head. It's a little like single power tube, single preamp tube, and it's a monster.
Mhm.
But I literally took that metal, it was
Mhm.
rusted out old
Mhm.
steel, like iron,
Mhm.
and I bent it over my bench in my
Uh-huh.
yard, and it's just like a bent, it's almost
Yeah.
rounded,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
it's just a rounded hand. You can
Uh-huh.
see that, you can see the hammer
Yeah,
marks
yeah,
in it,
yeah.
and it's rusty, and it's like the chassis for that
Uh-huh.
amp, and there's a little head for it
Mhm.
and stuff. So
Dude, I have to see that. I've never seen it.
it's sitting on the shelf.
Yeah.
It's over there.
Dude,
But
that's so rad.
just like that fever
Uh-huh.
to burn, man. Just like, I gotta do this. This is gonna be
Yeah.
amazing. I
Mhm.
can't wait to hear this thing, and
Yeah.
hopefully it's good.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm gonna pull an audible right now, and one of the questions that was a last minute question before we sat
Uh-oh.
down. So you haven't heard this one. How do you feel about profiling amps? Meaning, like, like an amp can you copy essentially what it sounds like. Like this new age of amp modeling and
Right,
things like that versus
right,
the actual thing. Because I feel like I've already known the answer, like touring with bands and things like that. And it's cool. I understand the necessity behind it sometimes because if there's not a budget to travel because of freight or whatever, or because an artist is scared to travel with such an expensive amp, and
right,
it's like it's just fuck it, who cares?
right.
Let's just take this amp or whatever. Versus, but like in the sense of like people buying a profile amp, And followed by, would you be against having someone profile your amps and selling them? Maybe even you know?
Right. I've kind of walked down that path before. I'm not opposed to doing the profiler of these amps. I think it'd be interesting to make it more accessible to more people. You know? But to answer the first question, I think that you know, a profiler and a modeling amp is never really going to give you the same satisfaction that real output transformer and real tubes are giving you. You know, moving that kind of air and having that connection with that tube amp and all of that technology from you know 1950.
If there is a golden nugget of advice that you wish that you could, that you knew when you were 18, 21, 25, like what would it be? Does that make sense?
Oh man.
I know. I know.
Golden nugget of advice.
Whatever. It could be whatever.
I guess disclaimer. I think when you're that age, when you're 18, 20, part of the beauty of being that age is that you're just, you know, you're free swinging.
Yeah. Of course.
You don't think about like, you know, every summer is like forever. You don't think about building something long term usually. Yeah. But if I could, and I would say, wow, you know, I'm going to be building amps, and I'm going to really build this into a, you know, something that's going to last forever. Hopefully, a brand and a product that will last for hundreds of years. You know, maybe at that age, focusing more on one thing, I guess. Like, but I don't know. It's a tough one.
I know it is. I know it is.
Because you know you gotta have your experiences when you're younger and find out what inspires you
but just like what, like for me, for example, is it's a tough question and it's taken me forever. It's just like, but for me, like I always tell people when like because it is a tough question and everyone's just like, just fucking answer the question. It's a tough question. For me, there's anything I could teach like 25-year-old, 21-year-old Luis is like, dude, just shut the fuck up and understand the importance of patience. Be patient. Things take a long time.
But nobody at 18 or 20 years old wants to hear that.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, what would, I mean, it might be the same thing because it's like, but what would like 21-year-old Gio, like, what would you teach 21-year-old Gio? You know what I mean? Like now.
God.
Because I know there's some 21-year-old Gio out there being like, what do I need to hear right now?
Right.
You know, like what would it be? Anything. Like understand taxes to, you know, whatever it is. It's like,
I don't know, man, because I feel like all those experiences that we have when we're young, they shape who we are as we grow up a little bit. So you know, you can't really try to.
I know. I mean, it's
change
I know
people's experience.
I know.
But again, I'll come back to what I said earlier, which was, I feel like once I decided I'm going to dig into this and I'm going to continue to do this, and I show up every day to do this, I think it's the understanding that the long term is part of the process and accepting it, but staying in the moment, saying, hey, you know, we're overwhelmed. We have so much work and so many people that want our stuff, which is awesome. But being able to not feel overwhelmed in the moment. I mean, I guess one of the big things is stay in the moment, appreciate what's going on. Because if I look too far outside of what I'm doing, and I go, oh my God, we've got 12 amps to finish by the end of the year because of it's like, oh fuck, and then I'm stressed out and everything kind of gets crazy. It's like I just have to try to stay in the moment, appreciate and be grateful, and just do what we're doing. And if an amp takes me an extra couple days or whatever because there's a problem, or it just takes me longer to get through it or whatever, it's like just stay in the moment, appreciate what you're doing, and know that it's part of the collective good of what you're building for your life, and whatever that is, whatever if you're a fashion designer or an artist or a guitar builder or an amp builder or whatever, it's like if you really are inspired by that, accept it and stick in there and build it long term, and it'll all make sense.
That's a great answer. That's a fucking awesome answer. Actually, you don't hear that
Really?
often. Yeah, like just live in the moment, stay in the moment.
Because it's hard to understand if you're committing to something long term, especially when you're younger. You're like, oh, my opportunity's open. I can get a job. I can work at so and so. I can work for so and so. I can apprentice with such and such. I'm in a band. I'm in 5 bands. There's like so many things going on when you're young. But if you're really inspired by something, try to commit to that. Like, I think maybe a really helpful idea would be like, for both of us who came here as like musicians, there's so many musicians out there who are trying to be studio guys and touring guys and get more gigs, and I did that. I guess at some point I made an unconscious decision to shift away from that. I look back and I say, wow, if I would have just stuck with Jack Johnson. I mean, the guy who also played bass on Everlast record, Night Train Merlot, that's what he's credited as. His name's Merlot.
Yeah.
He still plays with Jack. And Adam Topol, the drummer who we played together, he still plays with Jack Johnson. They still played at 60,000, 100,000, Kikuya Festival and all these. They're still with him. At that point, if I would have wanted to stick in there, it was really my choice. Yeah. I was so, hungry for doing so much that I was like, whatever, like there was stuff going on in politics and budgets and minivan tour up the coast. I was like, whatever, I'm working on this next album. It's paying me twice as much as that. Yeah. I was just like, if I would have thought that, hey, I'm going to be a sideman for the rest of my life and this is what I want to do, I would have grabbed that opportunity and I would have stuck in there, and I might have done that and other stuff like it. It might have been my main thing to this day, making whatever they make. They make good money, I'm sure. But I was still hungry to do something else. So I was searching and searching and searching. But if you find something that really inspires you and you think you want to do that, stick in there, focus on it. Go to extremes. I think what you did, what you did to get this space and make that decision and move in and take 4 weeks off of your work and design the space. And that was a really big decision. But you thought, hey, this is something I really need to do and want to do. Yeah. And it's turned into like a whole business for you and like a livelihood. So I think sometimes if you really feel like you are inspired by something and you want to do something, you sometimes have to kind of get extreme. At the time, it seems extreme to do. Like when I got this space and built that wood shop, I was like, I told the landlord, I want to build a wood shop. He's like, all right, pay a little extra, you can build a wood shop. Yeah. I built an entire structure out there. Yeah. Out of old reclaimed materials. It's now my wood shop. So sometimes things seem crazy, or pulling that trailer into Tularosa, into the Silver Lake shop. I was like, that was insane. Nobody would do that.
You're right.
But it's like if you have a necessity and you have an inspiration. So I think to answer that question, what could I tell younger people who want to do something? Sometimes you think what you want to do seems crazy. But you know what? If you really want to do it and you really are inspired by it and it makes you happy, then don't waste your time on other things. Do what you need to do that
thing. Amazing. Oh, dude, amazing. Dude.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me.
I love you, buddy, man. Yeah, you are fucking awesome, dude.
And you do amazing work.
Dude, thank you.
I didn't say that.
Thank you, man.
You set up one of my guitars yesterday. I took it home last night, and it was perfect.
Dude, awesome, dude. Awesome. I mean, dude, it's just cool, man. It's like, it's insane that we're neighbors. And
awesome.
Love the neighborhood. I'm so blessed to be here, and it's cool, man. It's, to
look forward to see what the future brings.
Yeah, man. It's like, I'm doing my thing, and I feel like I'm still like in the, as do I want to tour? But then I got a really cool shop at home, and this idea is like I'm figuring it out. Yeah, but it's really comforting to know that, like I said, dude, like it's nice to be able to look at my neighbor and be like, he's been doing it for much longer, and he's figured out a lot of these steps that I'm struggling with, and I'm figuring out. And it's nice to just have that mentorship of like, hey, what do you think? And it's like it's nice. It's really nice. So with that, I'm very blessed and very fortunate to have you as a neighbor, man. And and dude, you know that I love your stuff, and
thanks, man.
I love everything that you're doing, and it's inspiring. Like I said, dude, sometimes I'm like, ugh, I'm tired, and I'll sit on my couch out there, and I'm like, I just need like 10 minutes, and then I hear and I'm like,
get up.
Get the fuck up, man. That dude's fucking making noise. You better be making some fucking noise too. You know what I mean? And it's cool, man. It really does help, man. And it's like it's going to the gym and seeing like people like other people like, yo, that dude's working, she's working. What's your excuse? Shut the fuck up, get in there and do your fucking thing. That's it. Get it done, man. That's it, and it's been fucking rad, and
hallelujah.
Hella fucking Loria, baby. And dude, we're y'all don't know it. We're literally gonna make a fucking thing here, man. And in like 5 years, dude, it's gonna be like, oh yeah.
The whole block will be like builders.
Dude, that's it, man. We're kicking everybody out, dude. I don't give a fuck. Like, we're doing it, man. We're gonna do it, and it's fucking rad, man. And
well, I feel like now is kind of like this golden age of gear. It's like this resurgence of great builders and people doing unique stuff and people bringing it in house. And it's awesome because people are able to support themselves doing really cool, unique things in the gear world. And a few years ago, it wasn't really like that. And I think social media has helped bring everybody onto this platform where it's like, wow, we can share something and have it shared with our whole community in a matter of seconds, really.
Yeah, literally, man. So it's crazy. Like it's cool, man.
Like, what do I want to share? That's another thing to think about. It's like, what am I doing? What am I sharing? What am I offering to this community? Am I offering something unique? I feel like there's a fair amount of people who there's resistance from like people who see certain things that are totally different. It's like it takes time. We keep talking about time, but it takes time for people to absorb certain things. But there's a platform for us now to share things and share what we do, whatever that is.
Dude, I agree. And I hope, if anything, it inspires you to just understand. Like, I feel like the importance of just getting over failure. I feel like
embrace
it, man. It's part of the formula, it's the Siamese.
When you embrace it and realize that that's gonna be part of your trajectory, then it's like it frees you. It frees you up. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because when you think, oh, you're gonna do this, it's gonna be right, it's gonna be perfect, whatever you're doing, it's not. You're not gonna get the gigs. You're gonna try out for gigs and you're not gonna get them, and someone else better than you is gonna get them. You're gonna try to build something and it's gonna not work or whatever. But if you embrace that, then it empowers you to like say, okay, I've learned a lot. If you can learn from that failure, you take it to the next level. I'm going to give you one quick example.
Yes.
From talking about Instagram and the social media thing. Chris Vincent, who's a good friend of ours, DJ Lava Lamp, he's awesome. And he's been a friend of mine for many years since I was at Silver Lake, and we built things together, built amps for him, repaired stuff, restored stuff. And we were always trying to figure out what we were going to do together because he was always like doing vinyl gear and just tearing it apart and all these great components, and I would buy tubes from him and stuff, and actually gave him one of these boxes, and he utilized it, and he finally found his voice. He found his voice, and he started making treble boosters, and now he's making wahs and fuzzes and all that stuff, and he's gone from being like, I'm trying to figure it out to like he's like one of the key players in the like pedal game at this point. So cheers to you, Chris. And and just a few years ago, he was like just finding his voice, and so that's that's a success story, man. And he's doing well, and I'm proud of him. And I feel like if I could have been a little piece of inspiration for him on his process, that's awesome. And he's
dude, shout out to Chris, who he was here with Gooch. Josh Gooch, and like check That's the first time I met him, like, in person. But it's cool. Yeah, it's like, it's cool to see him, like, do these drops, and it's like sold out, and it's like,
Yeah.
hot damn,
Amazing.
dude.
Amazing.
Good for
And
you,
he took all
man.
these old components
Uh-huh.
and, and managed to
Mhm.
recreate certain
Yeah.
types of circuits that
Yeah.
really worked. And there was something magical with
Mhm.
all of the old
Mhm.
components. It's like I love old components
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
go through my ins and outs
Uh-huh.
with them, but he found a voice in
Mhm.
that,
Oh, dude, 100%,
So,
man. But, dude, you're doing the thing, man. Guitars, amps, and God knows what the future holds for you, man. So I know you're doing pedals too. We didn't even touch on that,
yeah.
but I'm gonna tag all Black Volt stuff. But dude, where if somebody's interested in repair or getting a custom guitar or amp, like how should they go about it?
Just go to the website,
Black Volt Amplification
blackvoltamplification.com. You can always reach out, send us an email, or
Instagram.
phone numbers there. You
Mhm.
can Instagram DM us.
Mhm.
We're around. I mean,
Mhm.
we're here for you.
Yeah.
We're here for people to just a lot of people want custom stuff. We
Yeah.
do custom
Yeah.
stuff. We do our stock stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know, we're just doing it.
Yeah, hell yeah. These motherfuckers are doing it. I'm telling you. I hear them every fucking day. It's like, yeah, they're doing it.
and our team is really only like 3 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for the most part, there's me and 2
Mhm.
other guys that are
Mhm.
steady. Some of them have other help that comes and
Mhm.
goes, which is great to have some help in the wood shop or whatever. But it's not like some huge.
Big operation.
It's not a big company.
You're getting there, man.
It's
You're
not a big
getting
company.
there.
I see other companies
Uh-huh.
that have 5, 10, 15
Mhm.
employees. I
Mhm.
mean, they have this presence.
Mhm.
It's like we're not that.
Dude, not
For
yet,
better
man.
or for worse.
Yeah.
But I also hear, I mean, like Benson amps. I love Chris Benson.
Mhm.
Hey, Chris, shout out.
Mhm.
These guys are awesome. But I have a client who called me the other day who's getting one of my amps, and he said, I waited 13 months for a Benson amp. Wow. That's a long time, Mule resonator guitars, Matt Ike, love you, brother. We shared booths right next to each other at the last damn show, right before the world shut down. I mean, I think you guys are out 12 to 16 months to get a guitar. I mean, it's amazing. Like, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
To wait a year for a piece of gear.
Yeah.
It's a
I'm
long time. But
yeah.
I mean, we try to. I don't know. There's no recipe book for it. There's no right. There's no wrong. It's just like, wow. It's wild that in this golden age of gear, people are waiting a year to 2 years for a piece of gear. It's wild.
It is wild, man.
You know?
It is wild, and I mean, good for them. It's the figuring out the logistics behind it. It's just like, that's a long time, man.
Yeah.
That's a long fucking time.
I mean, do they have hundreds of people on their wait list?
I don't know, man. I know. I mean, it's like, it's wild, man. But
it is, and they both make amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Another one, Wide Sky Guitars.
Yeah.
Patch Rubin.
Yeah.
In New Mexico.
Yeah.
Who I think
he's moving to Hawaii, right?
Yeah, did he announce it?
I think so.
Yeah. We're in touch, and we stay in touch, and he's great. And
Uh-huh.
he told me a little while ago he was moving to Hawaii, building his dream shop. But yeah, I mean, I think people wait close to a year to get a guitar. It's amazing. I think he works alone, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he does alone.
That's hats off to you, brother. If you're the only one making those guitars, man, that's a lot of responsibility to do everything on your own.
Bless your fucking heart, and you know that I'm such a supporter, and I believe in everything that you're doing. I'm so excited to where everything the Black Volt company is going, and it's fucking awesome, man. And at some point, I know that we're gonna probably work more together, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
And life is amazing, dude.
All right, awesome.
Love
it.
Any last words? Anything? Where can people find you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
All my, I'm out there.
Uh-huh.
Website, Instagram, phone,
all
Send
the
up a
good
smoke
shit.
signal.
Yeah.
Look, I'm available.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
I'm definitely one of these people who's here pretty much every day doing it. And if people need me or want me, it's like.
And you do amp repair.
Amp repair. We have a full-on amp repair business that runs alongside of all of our building.
Yeah. Georgie's amazing.
George,
Olivier.
Yep. Mike
August
too.
now. Mike. I know I always forget about Mike because I don't really see him as like Mike. But also you do some pedal stuff too.
Oh yeah, we repair pedals. I think we're one of the only people left in town.
Yeah, you are.
Pedals, tape machines. We do Echoplexes and Rollins. I used to do more Bensons, the Benson Echo Rex, but they're super tricky and they had a terrible problem with their shielded cable. Once the shielded cable starts to disintegrate, all the signal gets grounded to the shield and you have to replace all of it. And it's a massive job.
Yeah. So if anything pedal wise, amps, just hit you up. You're like, hey, you do this. If not, for sure you can point them in the right direction.
We don't even like promote a lot of the repair, like the amp repair stuff we do.
Yeah.
Like there's some amp repair folks in town who are always like promoting amp repair. And it's like we do it, almost every day. It's like if I'm not doing it, I have one of my guys, usually Mike, who's there, who's doing amp repair, which means he's this far away from me. So if he says, hey, listen, you need to listen to this and see if it meets your standard, or hey, these filter caps are testing at certain level. Do you want to replace them?
Yeah.
Do you want to contact the client because of this?
Yeah.
So even though if I don't always have my hands on the amp,
you're there though.
I'm always
and he is.
Yeah.
Helicoptering. I see it. It's cool. It's rad.
Yeah. So it's like he does his thing and I'm not like breathing down his neck.
Yeah.
But it's always got to meet.
Yeah. And he's rad. He's so rad. They are all rad. Like just like.
And they all know their stuff. I mean, Mike's been doing it probably 20 years longer than I have.
Yeah.
And George, George worked at Roland for 20 years and Disney for 20 years. It's like 15 years.
Oh, they're so sweet. And they're so sweet. They're awesome. They're so awesome. They gave me pizza yesterday. Oh, amazing. Anyways, and then obviously the custom amps, custom guitars,
Yeah,
so
guitars is a whole nother frontier to be determined.
And then you were telling me that you're going to be at NAMM, right?
Chances are they've moved the 2022 NAMM, the winter NAMM, it would have been January, because it's been every year since like 1970. They're moving it to summer, I think, this year. So we're probably going to do it. I spent the last 3 years sharing a booth with James Trussart, guitar maker. But I don't think we're going to be sharing a booth, considering that I'm making guitars.
Yeah, you got a lot of cool stuff coming.
It'd probably be a little bit of a weird conflict.
For sure. No.
But I'm grateful to James. James is one of the legends in this business. And he's taught me a lot, even in his kind of weird hands-off way, just being that close to James for a few years.
Yeah.
James makes some beautiful guitars and has carved out his own unique voice. Absolutely. Not to mention all the biggest celebrities on the planet play James Trussart, or at least own one.
Yeah.
They don't play it. From Dylan to Stones to Charlie Sexton and on and on. So yeah, to be able to be that close to James and be able to hang out with him and be around him and all that, I think he's been a mentor as well. Speaking of mentors, I mentioned him, but James is amazing. So anyway, NAMM. I'll probably have my own booth at NAMM this summer.
Dude, hell yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
That's fucking rad.
I think it would be kind of a whole nother level to have the guitars and the amps all in the same place to be able to like share with the public. I'm kind of think that would be inspiring.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, there you go. Make it out to NAMM. And you'll be able to try his amps and guitars and talk to the fucking living legend himself. Gio, man. Dude, seriously, man.
Yeah,
I know we're neighbors and we talk every day that we're here, but it's fucking cool to get it fucking recorded. I love you, buddy. You know that, man. And
thanks for having me.
Dude, of course, man. It's like I owe so much to you. But that's it, y'all. That's any last words?
Thanks for hanging with us. Thanks for sharing in the journey.
That's it. All right, y'all. We love you. Peace out, motherfuckers. Peace out. I love y'all.